Chapter 764. Chen Guang smiled. But now he's realized that it's useless. That's just how you are. No matter where you are, you'll always bring danger to yourself. Even if he asked you to be the bureau chief of the district branch, you'd still be able to brace yourself and charge to the front. You're a good bureau chief, but you end up doing the work of a suicide squad. Isn't that right? You can't say that. As an official, if I can't even take the lead, how can I lead my brothers to charge to the front? My life is a life, and so are my brothers' lives. I'm more capable, and my ability to protect myself is stronger. Why don't I do it myself? I don't want to be the kind of official who sits in his office and directs the world with vigor. Even so, it's inevitable that people will worry. Uncle Wu is right to be concerned about your safety. Wu Tong sneered. You have the cheek to talk about me? Do you think I don't know what you did in Detroit? Besides, when I was kidnapped by Sergio, didn't you come as well? Why didn't you think about yourself? TSK. Chen Guang's face stiffened. I'm different from you. I have confidence. What confidence do you have? Aren't you just a student? Don't tell me you have 3 heads and 6 arms. Tell me, be honest. Where did you learn your skills? Wu Tong finally found an opportunity to ask this question. She had been hiding it in her heart for a long time. Of course, Chen Guang wouldn't tell her about the heavenly Holy Grail, but Wu Tong knew him very well. It was impossible to pretend that he didn't know anything. I can't explain it to you in a short time, but do you believe in the existence of God? It appeared again. The same trick he used to trick Tang Ying. Theism. Wu Tong's pupils shrank. She stared blankly at Chen Guang. She thought he was talking nonsense, but it seemed like he was serious. God? Don't joke around. What era is this? Chen Guang gulped down a mouthful of water. Just take it as a joke. After dinner, Chen Guang returned to the hotel. Wu Tong's mind was also filled with thoughts about Chen Guang's theism. Although Chen Guang didn't say much about it, she was still greatly impacted by it. It was similar to how Tang Ying felt when she first heard about it. However, Chen Guang didn't tell her everything, so she could only guess on her own. As for Chen Guang, although Wu Tong was quite beautiful today and sometimes made him have evil thoughts, he had a lot of things on his mind at this time. Even though Wenwen did not make it clear, it was very likely that her battle to the death with Poison Sect and Dark Sect was coming soon. Chen Guang was starting to get anxious as well. As the saying goes, do one's best and leave the rest to the heavens. No matter what the final outcome is, do everything you can before things become the worst. At the very least, you won't have any regrets in your heart when you are truly consigned to eternal damnation. That was what Chen Guang thought and had been doing all along. During this period of time, he had thought of everything and done a lot of things. It might seem like he was hammering here and there, but in fact, everything he did had only one goal, which was to make the production of faith points catch up with the demand. Although he was always laughing and fooling around as if he didn't have a care in the world, he had never wasted a single moment or slowed down his pace. During this period of time, everything he did was for the sake of completing the muscle training in his body as soon as possible so that he could reach the standard of inner force. Since Wenwen had to pretend to be cold and indifferent in order to disassociate herself from him, it meant that the situation was more critical than he had imagined. Therefore, time waited for no man. At this moment, there were many problems in front of him. First, he had to maintain a good relationship with the old masters. He had to make use of his identity as the director of the stabilizing general headquarters to find a way to become Wenwen's right-hand man. On the other hand, when the stabilizing general headquarters grew stronger, it would be time to take action against those stubborn inner force martial artists. Without a doubt, Poison Sect and Dark Sect were the best among these stubborn people. Even if he couldn't kill them all, they could at least help to restrain Wenwen a little. Second, he had to find trouble with World Breaker as soon as possible. The more intense the method, the better. Chen Guang was really sick of these bugs flying around him all day long. Third, he had to find ways to increase the production of faith points. No matter what method he used, as long as it could increase, it was a good thing. However, the Great Perfection Cup World, which could increase his faith points to the maximum in a short period of time, was almost complete. The only things left were the pile driver and the racing god training ground. However, Both of them were not low and were not far from the maximum. It was not worth it to continue spending time and energy on them. Therefore, he needed a new god statue. However, ever since he inexplicably lost the 7 great god statues, he had not obtained a new one. On one hand, other than the 7 great god statues, it was difficult for his other skills to be recognized by the world in a short period of time, such as acting skills. On the other hand, he did not have the time and leisure to mess around with new god statues, such as the 4,978 languages. Another option was to train his muscles in batches. Chun Guang had thought of doing something about this, but it was not easy to come across an opportunity like the World Arm Wrestling Competition. It was time-consuming and laborious to hold the competition with his own money. There were as many as 40 muscle groups, and it was not practical to train each of them once like the World Arm Wrestling Competition. In addition, there should be no one interested in the strongest foot soles. No one would participate in the competition, and no one would watch the live broadcast. That would be embarrassing. Therefore, Chun Guang had to go back and complete 2 deluxe special training sessions. Then he had to think about the god statue of the Heavenly Holy Grail. Well, to put it bluntly, he was asking Liu Li for help. She always had a way. Although it was good to have a relationship with Wu Tong, it was not the right time. In a house in the Middle East, Xue Lin, with a face full of stubble and skin tanned, walked out with his travel bag. At this moment, he was playing the role of a traveling reporter. There were many scars on his face, and he had completely bid farewell to the image of a white-faced young man in the 5 capital. He had stayed here for 5 days. In these few days, he had caused a lot of damage to the Broken World training camp near this small town. It was time to leave. "Yo, Mr. Reporter, are you going somewhere far again?" Xue Lin smiled. "Yes, I've been out for too long. It's time to go home." He had never thought that he would experience so much killing on this trip, nor did he expect that he would be able to survive until now. Ever since he gave up his military post and left the country, he had never thought of going back alive. But in the end, he gritted his teeth and endured it. Relying on the pair of hands that Chun Guang had given him, Xue Lin turned around and waved, then strode forward with his head held high. In a sense, he had avenged his brothers, but he did not relax. Instead, his heart was still heavy. Xue Lin knew that his actions had caused a lot of trouble in the country. This went against his duty as a soldier. However, he could not convince himself to stop. The arrow had already left the bow, so how could he retract it? I have no other choice. Every day that he walked on this land, Xue Lin deeply felt the pain that the broken world had brought to the people of this land. Furthermore, these people had dared to target the faraway country of China and caused the deaths of his brothers at the border. His sense of justice, his sense of responsibility, the hatred in his heart, the provocation of the broken world towards China, and the strong response from China. All of these were telling Xue Lin, "Since you started this, don't stop. Either you die overseas, or you make the people of the broken world lose the courage to go against China. You have to kill them until they are afraid." Unfortunately, due to some inconvenient reasons up until now, even though his father, Xue Zhan, really wanted to help him, he was only able to provide some assistance in terms of information in the end, and he'd never sent a single soldier to help him. Up until now, Xue Lin had been fighting alone. In fact, this was the norm for China's special forces. Unless they were representing the country to carry out public duties, even if it was a secret mission, in order to avoid international disputes, they would usually give up their official duties by leaving the country. Only if they could return alive would they be able to resume their official duties and be rewarded accordingly. For example, a few years ago, 3 police officers were tasked with the important task of solving the Mekong River massacre. They concealed their identities and hid for several months before they finally captured the drug lord. This time, what Xue Lin was doing was even more dangerous than the Mekong River Special Task Force. The enemies he had to deal with were more ruthless and had a greater impact on the international community. Hence, he could not expose his identity. He really thought that he wouldn't be able to go back and had no intention of going back. He knew that it was impossible for him to uproot the entire broken world with his strength alone. Perhaps dying in this matter would be his final destination. At least, he would have no regrets. However, He never dreamed that Mr. Chen would make such an unbelievable leap in such a short period of time. Now, he had become a big shot with real power. What made Xuelin even more ecstatic was that the authority of the newly established Guangdong General Bureau seemed to be far above the ordinary departments. Chief Chen wants to help me. If Chief Chen took the lead and set up a special task force, or even a special task force, they would be able to deal with this matter more specifically. The shattered world was not even worth mentioning in front of the powerful Chinese military. Their support and help will no longer be limited to words, and I will no longer have to fight alone. I heard that the Guangdong General Bureau has newly recruited internal force users. I wonder what will happen if I work together with these people. If I have the chance, will I be able to learn a trick or two from my colleagues? More importantly, if everything is as Chief Chen said, then I will no longer be a moth flying into the fire. I will be able to turn the impossible into the possible, and I will be able to eradicate these damned criminals. With such a light heart, Xuelin boarded the plane back to China. He thought to himself, "The day I return will be the day of your destruction." Xuelin clenched his fists. "This is my responsibility. The trouble started because of me, so I should be the one to end it. I have never regretted doing this alone." Chapter 765. In the hotel, Chen Guang was lying in the bathtub with a satisfied look on his face. He had already changed his medicine twice. It was quite troublesome to brew his own medicine, but he didn't have any helpers when he was outside, so he had to rely on himself. Just now, he had successfully completed 2 customized special training sessions in the cup. He had learned from his mistakes, and this time, he had his eyes on his waist and abdominal muscles. A man must have a good waist. The cultivation process was a little painful, but the results were still quite gratifying. The deluxe version, which consumed more than 1,000,000 faith points, was much more humane than the beggar version. At least he had been given different fitness equipment, and he didn't have to drill out a pair of deceptive mechanical arms to press on his chest muscles. Nicosia Tempest felt quite wronged. Sometimes she thought that she might as well just die. Originally, he was thinking about life properly, but he was inexplicably dragged to a strange place by the goddess and turned into an even stranger fitness equipment. This stinky man leaned on him and rubbed against him, but he was powerless to resist. She had finally been freed, but before she could catch her breath, she had been dragged in again and done it again. Great goddess, when will I be free? Nicosia's soul roared loudly in the pitch-black and boundless void. Unfortunately, no one paid attention to her. Forget it. Nicosia sighed and fell silent again. She did not know how many years she had been in this place. Perhaps she had lost the concept of time. Fortunately, she was a mad scientist. Even if there was nothing, just imagining the results of her previous research in her mind was actually quite interesting. For example, now, she had finally deduced why her electromagnetic railgun had exploded. She had died with no regrets. Just like the elders of the Tepes family, she had died because of her overconfidence. However, at that moment, Azure did not have time to care about Nicosia. Even Chen Guang's special training had been arranged by himself. At that time, Azure had still locked herself in the leaves of the Dirkrai fruit tree. Now that she had woken up, it was because of another matter. The 7 statues that had mysteriously disappeared were completely gone, and there had been no new statues recently. It seemed that it had something to do with the disappearance of the 7 statues. However, since yesterday, it seemed that there had been some faint movements from the statues. It was as if a new statue was being formed, but because of the loss of the previous 7 statues, it was being held back and suppressed to the point that it couldn't come out. Chen Guang, who was about to go to bed, was dragged into an international chat room by a group of people. Most of the people in the chat room were from international airlines, as well as the technical directors of a few large Chinese airlines, as well as hundreds of aviation safety experts. At the previous press conference, Chen Guang had casually said that he would write a detailed analysis of his operation process. In the end, he had been busy playing the piano and saving Wenwen, so he had completely forgotten. However, others would not forget and had been thinking about it. After waiting for more than a day, there was no movement. Everyone couldn't help but gather together to try to crack it. Unfortunately, Chen Guang's realm was much higher than theirs. No matter how they analyzed and deliberated, the result was the same as before. They could not understand it. The more they pondered over every step of Chen Guang's operation recorded in the black box, the more they understood the gap between the two sides. Although reason kept telling everyone that there was no reason for Chen Guang to be so much better than others, the truth was clearly in front of everyone and could not be refuted. They admired Chen Guang's achievements in piloting more and more, and wanted to crack his mystery more and more. Aviation safety was related to the lives of all passengers. If they could successfully learn some of Chen Guang's piloting skills, write it into the operating procedures, and take this opportunity to bring aviation safety to a higher level, it would be a great merit. It would also be the best explanation for the frightened passengers on DL Flight 199333. After a day of continuous discussion, many experts and top pilots were at a loss. They simply found the person in charge of Air China and asked him to invite Chen Guang. At this time, it was past 11:00 at night in Yanjing, but the sky was bright abroad. Technical experts from all over the world gathered together to crack the mystery of Chen Guang's operation, so they did not care much about time. Aviation was like this. All pilots were unwilling to let go of the slightest opportunity to increase safety because the fault tolerance of aviation was too low and the price was too high. There was often only a fine line between a hero and a disaster. Every advancement in safety technology was built on repeated painful or frightening lessons, but the answers could be clearly obtained through technical analysis of previous incidents. But this time, if Chen Guang didn't look for him to explain, even those top-notch experts wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Hence, they couldn't be bothered about the fact that it was late at night in China and dragged Chen Guang along. At this moment, Chen Guang also felt somewhat embarrassed. After all, he would have to take a flight tomorrow and enjoy a lifetime hero's medal. Thus, he felt that it was time for him to clear up the doubts of those people. So he did not hold back. He slept very well last night, and now he was in a good state of mind, so he simply chatted with everyone in the chat room. Whatever people asked, he answered. Not only that, but he also drew inferences and answered in simple terms. This was simply strange and inexplicable. How was the knowledge he displayed like a beginner? This guy was simply an aviation encyclopedia. There are people who secretly thought that the smooth landing of DL Flight 199333 was all thanks to Chen Guang, but there must be a lot of coincidences in the actual operation process, and luck should be the main factor. But when they listened to Chen Guang's explanation of the right engine explosion and the series of operations when he operated the single-engine Airbus A320 through the thunderclouds, no one thought that it was luck anymore. There was only one thought left in their minds. Oh my God! Usually, Chen Guang wouldn't be so patient. But just a moment ago, an idea popped up in his mind. Among the few worlds in a cup that he had mastered, wasn't it the world of pilots that was the easiest to get a statue of God without great success? Now that he was here giving a lecture to others, if he could convince these people, then he could come up with some useful information for them to incorporate into the pilot's operating procedures. Wouldn't that be equivalent to gaining the recognition of the entire civil aviation industry? No, it wasn't enough to just talk about civil aviation. He couldn't just bring out all the real knowledge in one basket. He had to think of a way to bring out some of his experience in piloting fighter jets. But he couldn't be too deliberate. He had to hide it and let them figure it out on their own. Then, they would think that others didn't know and secretly picked up a treasure. This was a test of the art of speaking, and it also required strong professional knowledge. How to bring out the real knowledge mixed with the real knowledge was also a skill. Otherwise, if it was too obvious, it would instead make people suspicious. The other international friends would think that he was cheating them. If he did this well, he might be able to erect the statue of God in the pilot training ground. Although it was difficult, for the sake of faith, he had to become a master of speaking. When the benefits of doing things were no longer limited to doing favors, but involved the statue of God and faith, his fighting spirit was suddenly ignited. Needless to say, he was in a good state today. He explained what needed to be explained, and when he needed to, he did not fall behind. He spoke happily, and the others were also satisfied. Everyone was happy, and they quickly started taking notes. Everyone was so excited that they forgot the time. Seeing that it was almost time, Chen Guang yawned and looked at the time on the computer. He said, everyone, it's already 3 in the morning here. Let's stop here for today. Hey,
Don't.
Mr. Chen, don't. Let's finish asking. I still have a lot of questions here. We're not sleepy. We're really not sleepy. We're not sleepy at all. Even the person in charge of Air China in Beijing said energetically. Chen Guang yawned again. That's not good. I'm a little sleepy now. What if I say something wrong? Don't worry. How about this? Tomorrow at the same time, I welcome everyone to my lecture hall. We'll really end it here for today. Everyone thought about it. His words made sense. Everyone treated what he said as the golden rule. What if he was muddle-headed and said something wrong? What would they do? After closing the chat room, a proud smile appeared on Chen Guang's face. He was actually not tired, but he deliberately pretended to be. Today, he had only talked about the operation of passing through the thunderstorm. There was still at least 2/3 of the content left. When these people went back, they would definitely carefully analyze what he had just said. They would definitely find the hidden information in it. If he said too much at once, it would give them too much information. What if they missed it? Therefore, food had to be eaten one bite at a time. This class still had to be taught one lesson at a time. First, he would whet the appetite of these people, then feed them bit by bit, so that his influence would rapidly advance in the 2 major systems of civil aviation and air force. Then, the statue of God in the world of pilots would naturally be formed. Chapter 766. Before falling asleep, he entered the cup world again. When he first entered, Liuli and Dear Mingguo seemed to be in a heated discussion, but as soon as he entered, the 2 of them became silent. Chen Guang went up and asked, Hey, what are you talking about? Dear Mingguo said sweetly, Why do you care? I want to care. Is that so? I'm kidding. The sun outside is so beautiful today. Don't you want to go out and see? Yes, and then? Isn't it because you're too useless that Sister Liuli and I have been trapped here? Don't disturb my sleep. Do whatever you want. Also, isn't it night outside? What sun is there? Dear Mingguo looked like she didn't want to communicate with him and was going to give him a big leaf. Although Chen Guang felt that these 2 gods were sneaky, he couldn't do anything about them. After seeing the latest situation of his faith points, he was immediately overjoyed. Even the impatient Dear Mingguo became particularly cute in his eyes. That's right. After more than a day, his Piano World's faith point production capacity was finally full. What did I see? If he remembered correctly, the upper limit of his faith point production was more than 44,600 a while ago. But now, in the blink of an eye, it became 52,013. What happened? A sudden windfall? Did I pick up a treasure? Do you know how amazing I am? Seeing his dull face, Dear Mingguo's triumphant voice came. Chen Guang ran to the edge of Cloud City. Dear Mingguo, is this your credit? Dear Mingguo thought that he could finally hold his head high. What else? Chen Guang said very honestly, but it used to increase little by little. Oh my, you increased so much all of a sudden. I'm a little flattered and can't react. Dear Mingguo stretched out a leaf and patted his head. Actually, this is also your credit. Have you forgotten? Last time I sucked your blood, my head suddenly shot up, so of course it increased by this much. Chen Guang was overjoyed. Is my blood really that nourishing? Another round? Lu Mingguo was slightly moved, but she quickly retracted that thought in her heart. No, it's better to be like this for a while. I'm afraid I'll kill you. Don't stand on ceremony. Don't stand on ceremony with me. Come, let's do it. 1 drop of essence, 10 drops of blood. I have even more nourishing things here. Lu Mingguo spat. F***CKU, you wretched fellow. You're simply dragging down the standards of our god realm. After coming out of the cup world, Chen Guang crossed his legs and laid on the bed. Although it was already past 3 in the morning, he was still too excited to fall asleep. He couldn't help but be happy and excited. Suddenly, the upper limit of his faith value had increased by so much. It was simply a windfall. Holding the calculator, the total number of faith points produced by the 7 Great Perfection Cups shot up to 360,000. Even if he was a little more extravagant, he would only be able to enjoy the luxurious version of the world in a cup once every 3 days. His gloomy life was finally going to see the light. Actually, he was being too modest. If his life was gloomy, then others would not be able to see the light of day all year round. In just these 2 days, the detailed analysis of his shocking double-handedly playing the final ghost animal and Law 3 at the piano concert the day before was finally taken out. Especially when the individual tracks of the 2 songs were sorted out and compared accurately, those who were interested in this matter finally knew how amazing it was. This terrifying fellow, the intonation of these 2 songs were actually extremely high. The difference between the notes were all below 0. 0.5. This was too unbelievable. Alright, don't ask him how he did it, it was meaningless. Because the truth was that he did it. As for how he did it, there were too many people who wanted to ask him this question. There were too many things about him that could not be explained with common sense. For example, sharpening pencils, those videos of him racing, and throwing darts. Alright, in fact, when he played the Dota Tower, it was quite crazy to play the world alone. Oh right, didn't he participate in that so-called World Darts Championship? If I remember correctly, there are also videos of him throwing darts on his Weibo. Those videos also looked so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. A few days ago, the video of him participating in some arm wrestling competition overseas also became a hot topic along with this trend. Then there was one more incredible thing that happened to him. A Chinese man with thin arms and legs was actually able to pin those internationally famous strongmen on the table in an arm wrestling competition filled with monsters. Oh right, didn't he also play the role of a pilot 2 days ago and successfully crash-landed a fully loaded AV-320? How terrifying! In the hearts of the netizens, the accumulation of all these halos on Chen Guang was terrifying. How could he only know so many things? And as long as it was something he knew, there was nothing he couldn't do. List of brother all-rounder skills and achievements. What does he not know? This article compiled by the fans. From the moment it was published, it was crazily reposted on Weibo and other major media outlets. No one knew who the author of this article was, but it was obvious that the author had been paying attention to Chen Guang for a long time. He was very familiar with Chen Guang's history and used a narrative method to describe Chen Guang's achievements in various fields in great detail. The words were beautiful and the expression was clear. It was even more beautiful than the articles written by the insiders of Tianguang Brokerage. When the influence of the article reached its peak, Tianguang Brokerage also noticed this article and simply spent money to add fuel to the fire. Overnight, this unknown author named Xu Hihanji actually became a big media personality. His Weibo and WeChat fans both exceeded 100,000 within a day or 2. The next morning, Chen Guang left early. It was time to return to school. He dressed neatly with a wig, a cap, a mask, and a pair of large sunglasses. He was fully armed and carefully went to the airport alone. "Sir, please take that thing off your head. This isn't good. I'm afraid something might happen." Chen Guang looked at the airport ground attendant who was smiling sweetly and felt that her request was a little difficult. The ground attendant's face turned serious. "I'm sorry, this is the rule. You're probably a famous person, right? But our airport security has security rules. This is the VIP passage. There won't be many people making a ruckus." The staff thought to herself, "I've worked at Beijing Airport for so many years and have seen many famous people. Why are you acting cool in front of me?" There had never been any special treatment in the airport security. It didn't matter who you were. Chen Guang was quite distressed. No, that's not what I meant. This isn't good. Look, this is my ID. Why don't you let me in directly?" The ground attendant's face turned serious. "Sorry, I don't have time to look at your ID. Your information is on the computer in front of me. But you still have to take off your hat. We don't do special treatment. Seriously, are you Wazai or Chow Chow? I don't even see you. You're just a small celebrity. What are you being so arrogant for? Hurry up and take off the sunglasses, mask, and writing for me. If not, I'll call for help." After saying that, she felt that her attitude was a little too bad. She retracted her words and controlled her emotions. This I'm sorry, I might have said it a little too seriously. But the rules and regulations are here. I really can't do anything about it. Didn't an A320 crash overseas a few days ago? If not for our hero, it would have been a big problem. Recently, the higher-ups have been demanding of me. I've been working overtime for 7 to 8 hours. My attitude is a little bad. If I've offended you, please forgive me. Chen Guang sighed. All right.
I'm sorry.
I've just become famous, and I'm not used to it. I have to abide by the rules and regulations of the airport. A fat man standing behind Chen Guang burst out laughing. Bro, the security lady is right. The people here are all like me. They're not big or small, but they're also people of some status. They won't make a fuss like the youngsters. Come on, don't worry, and take it. Look, there wasn't anyone queuing up at the VIP passage. Now that you're here, there are already 4 or 5 people queuing up. How embarrassing. Chen Guang also felt embarrassed and asked, Then I'll take it. Take. Hurry up. Seeing that everyone was being so polite, the security lady urged again. Then she saw Chen Guang's face. Her mouth opened wider and wider. She was the first to scream.
Ah! Chen Guang.
Mr. Chen. Oh my God. Before Chen Guang could react, the beauty suddenly turned around and shouted at the top of her lungs. Hey, little Zhang. Little Qin. Sis Zheng. Quick, look who's here.
Chen Guang.
Oh my God. Chen Guang silently looked at this big sister, who was jumping up and down. He thought to himself, didn't they say that a small celebrity was not qualified to be poor? Look at your reaction. Are you really not my old fangirl? You're Chen Guang? Oh my God. I'm Si Maha from the China Music Association. Mr. Chen, can we talk? I have something very important to talk to you about. The fat man behind Chen Guang also came forward with a face full of enthusiasm. It was no wonder he couldn't keep his cool. In the past 2 days, especially after Lavin Hollander and the others publicly praised Chen Guang unreservedly on their social media accounts, the China Music Association quickly came to a consensus. They had to pull Chen Guang in as a registered member as soon as possible. It was a disgrace to the association to let the world's recognized best pianist wander among the common folk. This fat man was one of the few vice presidents. He also ran several music copyright operations and creative studios. He fought hard in the association to get the chance to represent the association to go to the 5 capitals to talk to Chen Guang. He never expected to meet someone at the airport. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to find him when he arrived in the 5 capitals. The heavens really had eyes. He was more excited than anyone else. His round face was as red as the rising sun. At this moment, Chen Guang felt that he couldn't even roll his eyes anymore. What happened to Su Tao's status? Didn't you say that you wouldn't be surprised? Bro, the air coming out of your mouth is almost spewing into my neck, okay? You bunch of liars. Half an hour later, Chen Guang sat in the shuttle bus under the reluctant gaze of many airport staff. He was really tired and sweating. His face was covered with lipstick marks. The enthusiastic air stewardesses could not stop him. He did not know who was the first to scream Chen Xiong. Then, they threw themselves at him and kissed him hard on the lips. But now, all the young and single air stewardesses started to follow him. In the beginning, Chen Guang felt embarrassed dodging them, but he soon realized that he couldn't avoid them at all. In the end, he could only stand on the spot and accept all of them. After the singles came up to have a taste of their mouths, it was not over. There were also those who were married, had children, and had boyfriends. Only a few people who were really reserved stood at the side and did not come up, but in the end, they still came over shyly. In fact, these air stewardesses did not mean that everyone wanted to throw themselves at him. It was just that what Chen Guang did was real and worthy of praise. He was a real hero. Besides, someone took the lead. Kissing him was not considered ambiguous. It was a reward for the hero in their hearts. Humans had the mentality of following the crowd. When many people did the same thing, others would also think, others have done it. If I don't do it, will I look like I don't fit in? Besides, this was a reward for the hero. So, what if they kissed him? It was not like they would lose a piece of flesh. So, The result was that Chen Guang had a face full of lipstick marks. He really underestimated his position in the hearts of the people in the aviation industry. What is fanaticism? This is fanaticism. My poor airplane god statue. Hurry up and come out. So many faith points have been lost. My heart hurts so much that I can't breathe. What he said wasn't wrong. People in the aviation industry were the most aware of the importance of aviation safety. Usually, pilots who successfully made a forced landing or saved other disasters would be widely praised and respected in the industry. Moreover, a layman like Chen Guang had done things that ordinary people could not do. In addition, Chen Guang's current reputation was also related to the hero image building plan under the protection of many old men. Recently, the senior management of the civil aviation industry had been attending his teacher Chen's lecture hall. They were eager to see him, and they had written about his glorious image in internal meetings and trainings. As a result, he was known by everyone in the domestic civil aviation industry. It was hard to say about the situation abroad, but at least in China, Chen Guang was probably the first real industry idol in the civil aviation industry after the founding of the People's Republic. It was not that there were no other pilots who had done something similar to him, but this was their job. They were not celebrities, and it was even more impossible for them to have a national publicity resource like Chen Guang. Chen Guang looked at the fellow flight attendants in the shuttle bus who were throwing flirtatious glances at him. He felt a chill in his heart.
Don't look at me like that.
I'm so nervous. Mr. Chen, do you have time now? I really have something to talk to you about. Poor Sima He, he only managed to get a sentence to introduce himself. Chen Guang turned around.
That.
I'm sorry, who are you? Actually, Chen Guang remembered Su Tao because he purposely mocked Su Tao's earlier words. Sorry, I'm a petty person. Sima He was embarrassed. He rubbed his hands. I am the vice president of the Chinese Music Association. Actually, I went to Wujing this time to meet you. What is it?
Tell me.
I'll think about it. Long story short, I'm busy. At this moment, Chen Guang was really busy. For some reason, he felt that a certain flight attendant was trying to rub her, but against his thigh. Beauty, do you really want to challenge the power of the strongest pile driver in history? You have to know that you're seeking your own death. Can you join the Chinese Music Association? I'm not free. Sorry, I'm not interested. I don't want to play the piano in the future. It's boring. Sima He was dumbfounded. Don't refuse so directly. If you have something to say, talk it out. Chen Guang's actions were too straightforward, so much so that Sima He couldn't recover from his shock.
Poor Sima He.
He wanted to represent his studio to sign a contract with Chen Guang. Later, his own publishing company would sell Chen Guang's solo piano album. In the end, he said that playing the piano was boring? Brother, as the person who can play the piano the best on the planet, are you a man to say such words? Chapter 767. Don't. Mr. Chen, with your current fame, how can you stop playing just like that? Do you know how many people in the world want to listen to your solo album? Sima He didn't care if he would disturb Chen Guang's sweet time. He decided to explain more about this man's potential in the market. He was afraid that Chen Guang wouldn't understand. Chen Guang nodded. Of course I know. I might really consider releasing an album later, but what does that have to do with joining your association? Anyway, I don't think I'm satisfied with any association. I had a special reason for agreeing to join China's escort agency. If there wasn't a special reason, I wouldn't have considered joining your association. Sima He was at a loss. Mr. Chen, let's talk this through. Whatever the escort association can give you, we can give you as well. I guarantee that we will not cause you any trouble, nor will we hold you responsible for anything. The car stopped beside the plane. The people in front were getting ready to alight. The air stewardess who had been rubbing against Chen Guang glared at Sima He. It was all this guy's fault for distracting Chen Guang. She had wasted all her effort. Chen Guang cupped his fists. Mr. Sima He? Hey, please speak, Mr. Chen. Excuse me. I'm getting out of the car. You're blocking the door. Chen Guang took 2 steps forward and turned back. If you're really going to look for me in Wujing, I think you can go back now. Oh yes, you can't give me what the escort agency can give me. Nonsense. Where are you going to find another one like Enchanting? She's cute, good at fighting, and hardworking. Ahem, there's no ambiguity here. Enchanting is really hardworking. She's hardworking. Such a peerless Lolita. Where are you going to find me another one? The escort agency even gave me their president, okay? Wait, there are two of them. I'm sorry, but the other one is Wu Miaoan. She's at my place now. Now that I think about it, I'm really a winner in life. The quality of having a mistress in my house is really good. In the end, Sima hadn't listened to Chen Guang and went back to Yanjin. Question: where are the civil aviation heroes most popular? Answer: on a long-distance flight. Chen Guang always had a feeling that if he was really a human-shaped self-propelled fighter jet, he could learn from other rich young masters to pick up girls and play with women. He could probably get at least one female confidant every time he took a flight. It wasn't that the stewardesses were indecent, but if you were single, it wouldn't be too much to exchange phone numbers, right? When you have time, let's have a meal together. That's not too much, right? Whether he was happy or not, he could spend some money to buy him a gift, a car, or something. Then he could have a meal together. That wouldn't be too much, right? Why don't we go watch a movie after our second meal? After watching a movie in the dead of night, why not go to the Hilton Hotel to talk about life? With Chen Guang's reputation in the civil aviation industry and his financial resources, as long as he wanted to, he could probably turn into a walking fighting chicken at any time. Unfortunately, he had seen too many peerless beauties. Ordinary women really couldn't enter his eyes. Apart from that, the more famous a person was, the more they had to cherish their feathers. If he couldn't control his penis, the end result would be that he would be hung up on the wall if he was having a moment of fun and accidentally framed out. I'm not from Canada. Of course, with his current influence, if he really wanted to clear his name, it wasn't impossible. However, public opinion might be able to clear his name, but it would still leave a stain. More importantly, Chen Guang was afraid that he wouldn't be able to clear his name. Although the old man wasn't a decent person, this kind of thing had to be consensual. More importantly, it had to be someone he liked and understood. Therefore, Chen Guang accepted the stewardess's flirtatious glances, especially the one who had started rubbing against him on the shuttle bus. She was also very daring. She had actually secretly stuffed a note under the paper cup while delivering the drinks. Mr. Chen, sigh. Chen Guang silently touched his forehead. He definitely didn't look at the almanac when he went out today. Sima, he was actually sitting next to him. Sigh, Vice President Sima, what's the point of dragging me into this? I'm just a student now. It's just a coincidence that I know how to play the piano, but I really don't have any interest in music. Don't make things difficult for me, okay? Okay, I'm tired. I need to sleep. Vice President Sima, don't talk to me anymore. After saying that, he took out Doraemon's cat-eye mask from his pocket and put it on. He slept too late last night, so it was time to catch up on some sleep. Sima, he had no choice, but he definitely wouldn't admit defeat so easily. The big words he had once said were still vivid in his mind, but now the slap on his face was so loud that it made his heart feel bitter. Mr. Chen, then I won't talk to you about joining the association for now. Are you really interested in considering publishing a solo album? Even though the sales of CDs have declined, but the market for electronic albums, especially those with lossless sound quality, is gradually rising. In the future, there will be a lot of possibilities for the copyright of your music. Chen Guang took off his eye mask and looked at him. That's a really good idea. Sima, his eyes lit up. It's not that I'm bragging, but in the field of music publishing, I know a major shareholder of Huadai. Thank you for your good intentions. This Chen Guang really wasn't bragging. Previously, he had a meal with a young man in the youth hall of Yanjing's mansion. He was the #1 major shareholder of Huadai in the country. At the very least, he could find Lu Chao. His Lu Shi culture was also a strong point in this area. How could he, a new acquaintance, pick up my fat meat? This time, Sima, he was really completely wiped out. Io. Why does my heart hurt so much? This wasn't the end, because he had forced Chen Guang to sleep. On the way, he had received quite a few supercilious looks from the air stewardesses. It's all because of you, damn fatty, that we don't even have a chance to get an autograph from Chen Guang. After arriving at Wujing without any incident, Chen Guang went straight to the airport and drove his Phaeton. He had asked someone from his company to leave the Phaeton at the airport. Originally, Yu Hong said that he would get someone to pick him up, but Chen Guang hadn't driven for a long time, so he wanted to drive himself. He wasn't in a hurry to go to Tianguang Agency. Instead, he went straight back to school. When he arrived at school, it was already past the registration time. But it didn't matter. He could still register in the administration building. However, there was a small interlude. He met an old acquaintance in the administration building. That's right, it was Zheng He. The two of them walked up the ramp in front of the administration building, one on the left and one on the right. Zheng He saw him from afar and was stunned for 2 to 3 seconds. Then, he turned around and walked away without looking back. In just a few months, Chen Guang had turned from a loser that he could bully to China's #1 online celebrity. It was fine if he was an online celebrity. To him, the young master of New Radiance Group, it wasn't a big deal. However, the strength and connections that Chen Guang had displayed in public time and time again had gradually surpassed Zheng He's understanding. Although Zheng He didn't have the right to know too deep secrets with his status, he knew that he couldn't continue to provoke Chen Guang for no reason from what his father had told him. It wasn't a deep matter. Back when Chen Guang established Tianguang Agency, Lu Chao didn't want to be his enemy, so he sold Zhuo Wei without hesitation. He even completely destroyed 8 Weekly, a media company that was rather influential in the industry. Lu Chao and his father were at the same level. Even the elders didn't want to offend him. No matter how unhappy Zheng He was, he could only pinch his nose and admit defeat. Looking at it now, the small fights he had in the past were really a joke. If he really wanted to deal with him, it couldn't be the same as before. Either he didn't make a move, or if he wanted to, he had to be ruthless. He might not even know who was looking for trouble with him, even after he died. Zheng He's face was gloomy as he walked faster and faster. This guy must be feeling smug now. He didn't guess wrong. Chen Guang was really feeling smug now. This guy used to act like a tyrant in front of him because he was rich and powerful. Although he didn't take advantage of him, and he was the one who taught him a lesson, he was still a little unhappy when he thought back to the past. When he saw Zheng he actually hoped that this guy would continue to jump at him. That way, he would have a reason to beat him up. Unfortunately, Zheng He wasn't stupid. He knew that he couldn't afford to offend him, so he turned around and ran as fast as he could like a frightened rabbit. Chen Guang shrugged his shoulders. This was human nature. It was a joke to bully the weak and fear the strong. After completing the registration, Chen Guang had nothing to do for a while, so he returned to the dormitory. Although he couldn't live in school because he wanted to practice martial arts and could only live alone in the small district outside, since he was back, he had to say hello to his brothers in the dormitory. Otherwise, those scumbags would keep repeating the phrase, "Don't forget each other when you're rich," for a whole year. By the way, his 2 right-hand men, Enchanting and Wu Miaowan, had already moved into the city. The 2 deputy directors had directly filled their pockets and asked for a 3-bedroom apartment in the new office building of the Guangdong General Administration. The 2 of them claimed that they ate, lived, and worked in the unit, proving that they were hardworking, unlike a certain director who was nowhere to be seen all day long. Sitting in a position without doing anything, no one dared to admit that they were second. In response to the 2's ridicule, Chen Guangju felt that they had no conscience. They didn't know how much effort their director had put in for the country. How dare they say that I'm sitting in a position without doing anything? How inhumane. By the way, these 2 despicable fellows didn't even pay the rent. After settling the matter, Chen Guang put on a full disguise again. There was no other way. Now that he was so popular and he was still in school, he reckoned that he would have to receive guests every day. However, he had just returned today, so he might as well save some energy. When he stayed in school for a long time, people would not always be so interested in him. Besides, when the pilot statue was erected, Chen Guang would also lay low for a period of time. At the very least, he had to train all the muscles in his body, master inner force, and cure all the problems of being a martial artist. Only then would he consider the next step of getting the statue and faith. Celebrities were like this. They were popular all day long, but after a long period of silence, they would quickly be metabolized. As soon as he entered the dormitory, Bai Nyangzi pounced on him, wailing, "Help, my brother! What's wrong? Did you cook for someone? You're crying to the heavens." Chen Guang stared. Bai Nyangzi's snot and tears were smeared on him. "I can't take it anymore, my brother. I'm done for. My book, Overbearing President, Please Love Me 1001 Times, is a flop. Hurry up and use your Weibo to repost it for me." Chen Guang took a step back and sent a ruthless kick flying towards this bastard. "Scram. Don't talk about your stupid book anymore. I only read the first chapter, and I'm so disgusted that I can't eat for a week." Chapter 768. Bai Nyangzi pounced on him again. "Bro, I'm begging you. I've been running around naked ever since I got published. I haven't received a single cent from any recommendation. I even dressed up as a girl to seduce my editor. Guess what happened?" Chen Guang's curiosity was piqued. "What happened? My editor is also a girl. Seduction didn't work. I'm so angry." Chen Guang rolled his eyes. "Isn't that obvious? You're writing a female-oriented novel. Isn't it normal for your editor to be a girl? So I quickly changed back into men's clothing. Guess what happened next?" Chen Guang silently clenched his fist. "I suggest you say everything in one go." Bai Nyangzi shed 2 lines of regretful tears. "My editor said that she likes girls and hates guys. She hates guys who dress up as a girl. I'm done for. I'm done for. I must have offended her. I'm being targeted." Chen Guang was speechless at this guy who had no self-awareness. "Targeted your sister? You wrote so badly. Who could bear to read it? The subscriptions were all over the place. Even if I'm the editor, I won't promote it for you. The last time I organized an event to help you promote it, I was scolded badly on Weibo. They said that I poisoned you." Bai Nyangzi waved his hand angrily. "Impossible. I wrote it so seriously. This is definitely a modern dream of the Red Chamber. To be honest, I'm begging you. I've never begged you for anything." Chen Guang started counting with his fingers as he continued. "Last semester, you begged me to bring you food, begged me to play games with you, begged me to bring you to the set, begged me to... Fine, it's too many. I can't even count them all, but you said that you didn't beg me for anything."
Sigh.
There's really no meaning in living. Blue skinny mushroom, this guy was not pretending this time.
He was really crying.
All right. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Looking at his heartbroken appearance, Chen Guang's heart softened. "You really have 8 lifetimes worth of dog *T luck to bump into me. Usually, when people offer me hundreds of thousands of dollars to advertise, I don't accept it. You're the only one." Bai Fan took advantage of the situation and said, "Brother Guang, you're the boss in our dormitory. You have to take care of your little brothers. Don't worry, I will remember your kindness forever, okay? I know your advertisement is expensive, Brother Guang, but when my book becomes popular, hundreds of thousands of yuan will be a piece of cake. You don't know how powerful those gods are. All right, stop. Stop right there." Chen Guang found a towel from the side and stuffed it into the guy's mouth, blocking his mouth. 10 minutes later, Almighty Superman updated his Weibo with a new message. "High energy warning ahead. High energy warning. The most irresponsible novel recommendation in history has appeared. Yes, that's right. You're not mistaken. I'm Chen Guang, recommending an unparalleled novel, Overbearing CEO, Please Love Me 1001 Times. Guaranteed to be ugly, melodramatic, and retarded. You'll ascend to heaven in minutes. You'll be poisoned after reading the first chapter, terminally ill after reading the second chapter. Even gods can't save you after reading the third chapter, and ghosts will worry after reading the fourth chapter. If you can get to the VIP chapter, then congratulations. You've joined the luxurious lunch of human tragedy. Remember to be a good person in your next life." Bai Fan watched Chen Guang's shocking advertisement. "Brother Guang, are you a real man?" Chen Guang patted his shoulder. "Young man, you don't understand. The more I scare people, the more curious they will be. Believe me, you're right." Bai Nyangzi looked at Dong Xuebing suspiciously, but He had no choice but to go to his author's platform to look at the data. If she hadn't seen it, she wouldn't have known. But when she saw it, she was startled. After a while, Lady White jumped up from her chair. It's gone up. Chen Guang curled his lips. How can it not increase? The old man is a high-end internet celebrity with more than 20 million fans. My Weibo post is more powerful than your website's big push, and this grandson is still doubting my power. Chen Guang did not have time to stay in the dormitory to watch Bai Nyangzi happily. He got up and walked out with Lin Jingwei. Brother Guang, what are you going to do next? What do you mean? What are you referring to, little Lin? Lin Jingwei looked in the direction of the female dormitory, hinting at something. Chen Guang sighed. I don't know what to do. I didn't plan to see Sun Xiaoxuan when I went to America, but then I encountered that incident. I can't just turn a blind eye, and in the end she's always like that and I don't know how to deal with her. Lin Jingwei sighed. Since ancient times, heroes have always had a weakness for beauties. F***CKU. I'm not a hero, and I don't want to be one. Of course, if you really want to say that I am, then it can only be that the times make the hero. I was forced to go all the way, and I had no choice. Lin Jingwei chuckled. I understand the logic. But life is F***ket up, and there are many things that don't make sense. Oh right, you can't stay in the dormitory anymore, right? Lin Jingwei asked. Just as the two chatted for a while, many of the guys from the same dormitory building ran over to ask for autographs from Chen Guang. Although he couldn't remember many of their names, everyone had lived in the same dormitory building for 3 years, and most of them were familiar faces. Chen Guang couldn't refuse them, so he signed all of them without stopping. The outside of the building surrounded by the dormitory was also crowded with people. There were men and women, but most of them were girls, and they all looked delicious. The dormitory manager was struggling to fight against 100 people, and she was working very hard. The price that Chen Guang paid was to give her son, nephew, and other relatives 10 autographs. Looking at the sea of people downstairs, Chen Guang nodded and said, I really can't stay here, Sai. Why are you sighing? Isn't it good to be famous? Lin Jingwei teased. Chen Guang looked back at him. Do I look like someone who likes to be famous? Lin Jingwei thought for a moment. I think you actually prefer to make a fortune in silence. That's it. I'm also in the pugilistic world, and I can't help myself. Chen Guang didn't have much choice. If he wanted to collect more faith points, he had to move from being a recluse behind the scenes to the front. He couldn't have every ability like the masked racing god and create a separate identity. First, it was very troublesome. There was no wall in the world that didn't have a crack. If he often walked by the river, his shoes would definitely get wet. On the other hand, only when he stood out completely could his many identities be integrated into one, and the fame brought by the many skills he mastered could form a chain effect. For example, if someone liked the piano and was also very interested in darts, they would first get to know him because of the piano, and then later find out that his darts were also so powerful, they would worship him. Then, they would continue to look at his Weibo and find out that his driving was also very good. Perhaps, it should be about the most amazing person in the world? Then, the same person would provide him with multiple shares of faith points. In addition, this person would also have friends, and they would introduce Chen Guang to their friends. In this way, the number of faith points would naturally increase, just like a pyramid scheme. This was the chain effect that Chen Guang wanted to pursue. Until now, after the Xiangjiang car gambling competition, he hadn't participated in any official public racing competition, but his racing god training ground faith points had been slowly increasing. The other few skills that had reached the full value of the world in a cup, after the strength of the deer fruit skyrocketed, could still keep up with the pace of the deer fruit, which was also related to the chain effect of Chen Guang. Recently, the reputation that he had created on the internet had never declined. It could be said that it had reached a peak. No matter what skill it was, as long as he used it, it would immediately attract the attention of the most people. Therefore, whether he wanted to be famous or not, he could only pinch his nose and accept it. Fortunately, the downside of being famous was losing some of his freedom, but there were also many benefits. For example, Zheng He's terrified expression when he first saw him, and now that his net worth had skyrocketed, Oh, right. There were also the countless female fans in his Weibo private messages that he couldn't even keep up with his eyes. Ahem. The Buddha said, can't say. He called his roommates, Sun Xiaoxuan and Gaoya, and went out to eat teppanyaki outside the school. Then, Chen Guang said goodbye to everyone and returned to his rented apartment. In the past, when Enchanting and Wu Miaowan were both here, he often despised the noise and the people who liked to peep at him, leaving him with no personal space and free time. But suddenly coming back here, the two girls were gone, and it was really hard to bear the loneliness. Chen Guang didn't want to admit that he was actually a person who was afraid of loneliness. Whether he became Liuli's savior or became the famous person he was today, it seemed that he had never separated himself from his past self. To put it nicely, he didn't forget his original intentions. To put it bluntly, he was born with a life of hanging by a thread. Even if he became powerful, he would still be a loser with power and power. It didn't matter. He spread his hands.
So be it.
There's nothing bad about being a loser. Sigh. It's just a room for one person. It's so empty, lonely, and cold. An empty room, an empty heart. I feel so empty, like the sky has turned gray. If a beautiful loli came to massage my back, legs, and shoulders, it'd be best if she wore less clothes, and it'd be best if she accidentally revealed a bit of her chest. That would be too blissful.
Ah.
I really, really miss it. Lord Chrysanthemum Head, based on my understanding of you, you should be thinking about very perverted things right now. Suddenly, Enchanting's voice came from behind Chen Guang's head, who was leaning on the sofa. Chen Guang sat up straight. How did you know? Enchanting rolled her eyes. Lord Chrysanthemum Head, your pants are already torn. How can I not know? Am I blind? Really, you're too good at making things up. A few days ago, you went to the Wenzone Pavilion to help your Wenwen suppress the demon, and today you can't hold it in anymore? You'll die of perverted behavior sooner or later. Chen Guang was about to quibble, but Enchanting curled her lips. Shut up, I know you better than the roundworm in your stomach. Your explanation is equivalent to covering up. This loli's mouth was becoming more and more poisonous. Master Guang was already so old, but he was really speechless. Who asked him to be caught red-handed by her? Chapter 769. Didn't you and Xiao Miao Miao move to the city? Why did you come back alone? Chen Guang silently reached his hand into his pocket and pushed that metal fellow over. Enchanting went directly into the kitchen, took out the meat and vegetables from the bag in her hand, and put them into the fridge. If I told you that I was worried that you would starve yourself to death at home, would you believe me? Chen Guang was shocked. This girl was really a roundworm in his stomach. She could even think of this? So considerate? The venomous-tongued loli's hidden attribute was considerate? Look at how beautiful you are. Chen Guang asked in disbelief. Really? Enchanting shrugged. I even bought the vegetables for you. Do I look like I'm joking? What about Xiao Miao Miao? Why didn't she come? Yo, you're looking forward to what's in the pot when you're eating from the bowl. Chen Guang tried to explain.
How can that be?
Aren't you two inseparable? Enchanting shrugged. All right, Xiao Miao Miao's master came. She's staying with her master. She said she wanted to give her some training. She didn't let me learn, so I chased her out. It's that simple. So you were chased out. What else? Do you think I'm that good? Sigh. Oh right, my master came to Wujing too. What for? During the military exercise, Chen Guang had once seen that indifferent abbess. She was hugging her sword with a stern face, as if everyone owed her a few $1,000,000. She looked exactly like an abbess that walked out of a television drama. She was simply terrifying. When he heard that Abbess Miju was coming, he subconsciously panicked. Enchanting shrugged. Didn't you say you wanted Xuelin to set up a special task force? We were thinking of finding 2 experts from the bureau to handle the situation. But when our master heard it, she insisted on going. Xiao Miao Miao, and I couldn't stop her.
Sigh.
Chen Guang heaved a sigh of relief. Oh, that's good. What's good about that? It's nothing. This is our first operation since the establishment of the General Directorate of Light. It's only right to be cautious. With the two elders here, I feel more at ease. How could he openly admit to Enchanting that his guilty conscience was because he wanted to eat her?
Oh, right.
Recently, about 50 to 60 sects have announced their intention to join the Guangdong General Directorate. In addition, there are nearly 1,000 former employees of the Special Affairs Bureau from all over the country who have gradually joined our Guangdong General Directorate. This is the latest personnel list from the headquarters. Take a look. There's no need for that. You just need to take a look and make sure there's no problem. As the director, how could he manage everything? The director didn't have time for such a small matter. Enchanting continued, among the dozens of sects that have declared their allegiance to the Guangdong General Headquarters, other than the Thousand Extremities sect and Thousand Flowers Valley that Xiao Miao Miao and I belong to, there are a few other purely female sections.
There are photos attached to this list.
The personnel screening is related to the country's plans. It can't be taken lightly. Give me the name list quickly. I want to check it carefully. After quickly looking through the name list, Chen Guang had a strong anticipation for his life as the director. It was no joke. When these purely female sects chose their disciples, did they all look at their looks? Look at these girls' noses, eyes, and cherry lips. They were all so beautiful that it made people salivate. Forget about it. Tomorrow I'll skip school and go to work. My womanland is waving at me. Enchanting looked at his fascinated expression and said with a sinister smile, "Oh, right. I forgot to tell you. I don't know who started the limelight when they registered their photos, but they all used a level 10 beauty camera. Also, there's a person called Xu Hanji in the unit who photoshopped them." Chen Guang threw the name list on the table and turned back to the bedroom.
Goodbye.
Seriously, you're not worthy of your title as martial arts practitioners. You're even worse than those internet celebrities. Level 10 beauty cameras and Photoshop them. Can't you let people live happily in womanland? Also, Lil Chu, you're a sweeping monk. Why did you Photoshop people's photos? How dare you hide such important news from me? Unforgivable. Alright, let's not talk about these things for now. After reading the detailed planning report of the Shattered World Task Force, Chen Guang was quite satisfied with Enchanting and Wu Miaowan's work efficiency. As the director, he had only proposed an idea. However, when it came to the actual implementation, it was not something that could be solved with just a few words. Apart from summoning Xuelin, who had been in contact with the Shattered World for a long time and had been living abroad, and appointing her as the team leader of the task force, he also had to appoint the sword-wielding nun and the beautiful woman as the two deputy team leaders. In addition, he had to add 20 former elite employees from the Special Affairs Bureau and 30 special agents from the Security Bureau to the task force. This could be said to be the most luxurious task force since the founding of the country. It could almost start a small-scale war. Using them to deal with the Shattered World was not an exaggeration. Now that everything was ready, they just had to wait for Xuelin to arrive in the country. Hello everyone, I'm Chen Guang. Yesterday, we talked about how I operated after I came down from the clouds. I was so nervous. At 10 o'clock sharp, the new Mr. Chen's lecture continued on time. Yesterday, there were about a few hundred people in the international chat room. After a day, when Chen Guang entered, he was shocked when he saw the number of people online. More than 14,000 people. What the heck? Free training is really popular, huh? If I knew there would be so many people, I would have charged entrance fees. $10,000 per person isn't too much, right? Fine. Maybe that's a bit too much. $1,000 is very reasonable for someone of my level. Forget it. I'm a hero in these people's hearts. I should pay more attention to my image. On account of the flight attendant who kept rubbing her butt against me on the plane today, I should pay more attention to my image. This lesson was once again about the moment before he was about to land. Everyone, today's class ends here. When you go back, you must study hard and complete your homework. Mr. Chen, you didn't give us homework. Oh, it seems so. By the way, in the next class, I will tell you why I can be sure that the 6 deceleration wheels will explode during the landing, and that we will stop at a position of 2,950 meters. This is also the part where I have to calculate the most during the entire process of the emergency landing. You can also think about it carefully. Everyone is an experienced pilot. You should know the factors that need to be considered during an emergency landing as well as I do. Mr. Chen, we're pilots, not experienced pilots. Don't worry about the details. Pilots are also drivers. If I say so, then so be it. Chen Guang's lecture came to an end in such a harmonious atmosphere. Compared to yesterday, Chen Guang mixed in more aerial combat skills today. After all, he was more and more familiar with this kind of thing. However, there was one thing that he was particularly concerned about. He always had a feeling that the pilot statue could jump out of Cloud City in the next moment, but there was no movement, and it was just a little bit short. He had no idea what was going on. Before this, he had already created 7 statues of gods and had a wealth of experience in showing off. Based on his past experience, the 14,000 people who appeared in the chat room today definitely included most of the technical backbones or top pilots in the global aerospace industry. Coupled with the private goods he sold yesterday, there should be quite a number of people from the military as well. Considering the happy treatment in Yanjing civil aviation today, he should have been widely recognized by the entire industry, but why didn't the statue come out? Chen Guang didn't know that at this time in Cloud City of the Heavenly Holy Grail, Lu Li and Lu Ming were also having a headache because of this problem for 2 whole days. The 2 great existences in the endless heavenly realm who had a lifespan of 10 billion years were having a heated discussion about this matter. Lu Ming, why do you think this is? Sister Lu Li, why? Strange.
Confused.
Confused with a capital word. Sister Lu Li, when did you learn to be confused? I probably learned it from watching Blizzard comics some time ago. The discussion between the 2 gods was really intense. Well, you two, maybe I have a good suggestion. At this moment, Nicosia Tepesta, whose soul had been trapped in the Holy Grail, spoke pitifully. Chapter 770. When Azure and Dirkrai heard Nixie's weak words, they both turned their heads to look at the void. Nixie, who was in the void, could not even sense her own body, but being stared at by the 2 god kings made her feel an inexplicable chill all over her body. Well, actually, I've been trying to figure out the mysteries of this space recently, and now I've finally made some progress. As expected of Frankenstein, Nixie, even in such a terrible situation, she still did not forget the spirit of scientific research. In a sense, she might have profited from a disaster, because in this void, she had lost her physical body but obtained an almost eternal soul, as well as a logical thinking ability that ordinary people could not reach. In this place, her photographic memory was displayed to the extreme. Her own soul seemed to have transformed into a computer that would never lose data. What do you think?
Speak.
Azure also became serious. As expected of a soul with a mechanical heart, it seemed to be very useful. Nixie pondered for a moment, then said, "In my judgment, the reason why the 8th statue that you want hasn't appeared yet is because..." Azure and Dirkrai's expressions immediately tensed up, and they said in unison, "Because of what?" The 2 deities couldn't be blamed for placing their hopes on Nicole. Although Lazuli could control the sky-soaring Holy Grail to a certain degree, the sky-soaring Holy Grail was basically an experimental product. Since Chen Guang was a lab rat, wasn't she the same as well? There were many things and changes in this Holy Grail that were also beyond her understanding. For example, when the 7 statues mysteriously disappeared, Azure and Dirkrai were also at a loss, and in the end, they even ended up in the awkward situation of their souls fusing into the Holy Grail. Nixie said, 2 great goddesses. I've been sent into that mysterious realm many times, and I've turned into some strange tools. I want to ask, is the reason for the existence of this magical space to train Chen Guang? Although I hate Chen Guang very much, I also understand that this is my fate, and I can't resist it. Lu Mingwa grunted, "You lowly soul. You're quite smart. It's like this." Then the statue you want, the meaning of its existence should be something symbolic when Chen Guang achieves a certain realm or achievement, right? This time, it was Liuli's turn to answer her.
Yes.
Then, is it possible that there is some kind of connection between the statues? Because the previous 7 statues disappeared, the 8th statue, which should have appeared like dominoes, failed to appear due to the lack of traction? Nixie said tentatively. Luli was a little impatient. What you said is all within my guess. It's useless. If I know more about the principles of divine power, I might be able to use modern scientific methods to calculate the formula, and maybe I can find the real reason. Nicole finally revealed her foxtail. Luli sneered. Interesting. You have quite an idea, but I don't think highly of you. In the endless God realm, there are countless people who are thousands of times more knowledgeable than you. Your so-called modern science is nothing in the endless God realm. It's just that Lu Mingwa reminded. Cough cough, Sister Liuli. You actually don't have to say that you're ignorant and incompetent. Liuli blushed. Shut up. Lu Mingwa. Besides, this girl called Nixie, this emperor knows what you're thinking in your heart. You can't hide any of your thoughts from me. You'd better obediently accept your fate. Even if you know what divine power is, it's meaningless, and it's impossible for you to grasp divine power. Unless what? Nixie was overjoyed. Lu Mingwa teased, unless the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail is willing to give you a chance of survival. Otherwise, you can stop dreaming. Not everyone has fortuitous encounters. Your fate is a tool. Nixie fell into a dejected silence. Liuli and Lu Mingwa shrugged, but they still didn't understand why. Since he woke up early in the morning, Chen Guang had been feeling uneasy. He didn't know why either. Ever since he got the heavenly Holy Grail, he hadn't felt this way for a long time. In a sense, he should be the most special existence in this world, possessing the heavenly Holy Grail and the Emperor of the Azure as his backer. He really shouldn't have this inexplicable sense of crisis. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't find the source of this sense of crisis. For the whole day, he first received the second batch of medicinal herbs from Wenwen at home, which almost filled the entire living room. He had no choice but to put all the medicinal herbs in Zhuo Jingxi's house, which had always been empty anyway. After that, he went to the new office of the Guangding General Headquarters and saw a few female martial artists who were swindling online. All right, there was no reason for all the girls who practiced martial arts to be so beautiful. Most of them were tall and sturdy, or they were old aunties like sword-wielding nuns. His plan of a female country was stillborn. After that, he finally met Xuelin, who had rushed to the 5 capitals. He hadn't seen his only disciple for a long time, and he was able to come back alive, which made Chen Guang feel a lot of emotions. His skin had turned darker, and he wasn't as handsome as before. There were more scars on his face, and his physique had also become thinner. However, his strength had increased instead. Although he still couldn't compare to Chen Guang, he was still more powerful than ordinary people. Xuelin's progress showed a principle. When a person's spirit was strong to a certain extent, the body could break through the innate shackles. Greetings, instructor. Xuelin stood straight in Chen Guang's office, and there was a trembling tone in his voice, which showed how excited he was. Chen Guang looked at the light green thread of faith value surging out of his head and was satisfied. This was his only fanatic. He was his only child, so he had to cherish him. Chen Guang moved forward in a friendly manner and asked, "You've had a hard time recently, haven't you?" Xuelin was stunned at first. He subconsciously felt that Chen Guang had become a little different after not seeing him for a period of time. How should he put it? In the past, although he was strong, in front of a special forces elite like Xuelin, he had always been as immature as a student. Now, Mr. Chen's face didn't change at all, and he even looked a little funny because of his bald head, but strangely, he seemed more imposing. Xuelin was puzzled, but he bowed his head even more respectfully. "Fortunately, I didn't let you down, instructor. It's because of me that shattered world caused trouble for you, instructor."
I'm sorry.
Chen Guang waved his hand. "It's no big deal. It's just a small problem. This time, I asked you to set up a task force to solve it once and for all. You can rest assured. With the help of the sect masters of the Thousand Despair sect and Thousand Flower Valley, and I'll give you the latest weapons, you can crush them in minutes, okay?" Xuelin became even more excited. "Thank you, Mr. Chen." After sending Xuelin off, the sword-wielding nun and the beautiful woman left with him. Since they were going to take action, they had to be swift and decisive. That afternoon, The task force of Shattered World would set off from the Five Capital and head to the neighboring Mount Baylor. The base of Shattered World was in the neighboring Mount Baylor. Of course, this was what Chen Guang had heard from the native Rammer language. After sending off this group of people, Chen Guang rushed to the Tianguang agency and met with Yang Shi, who had followed him here. Poor Yang Shi was actually quite embarrassed. He didn't know why he had come all the way to the Five Capital. With Chen Guang's acting skills, he didn't need any pointers. The evil big beard Deng was really out of his mind. Even Chen Guang's glorious record of shooting 12 commercials in one day couldn't convince him. This old man still didn't believe it and insisted that the commercials couldn't represent an actor's true ability. He insisted that Yang Shi come over to give Chen Guang intensive training. Chen Guang patted Yang Shi's shoulder, who looked aggrieved. Let him go to Zhuzhai on his own. Speaking of which, Chen Guang's recent commercials had started to be released on all the major media outlets in the country. Inexplicably, it had increased his reputation. Although this reputation seemed to be of no use for now, it would become his trump card in the future. The greater the reputation, the easier it would be to reach the maximum value after the new idol was erected. After a busy day, Chen Guang returned to school in the evening. It couldn't be helped. The new counselor didn't know him as well as Xue Jingxi did. It was actually quite difficult for the new counselor to deal with this international talent who had missed several compulsory courses at the end of last year. The grades of the compulsory courses were related to graduation, so it was better to call him over for a discussion. Where's Chen Guang? The young counselor sat in the office chair. He was even more nervous than Chen Guang when he spoke. Chen Guang sat on the stool next to him and replied with a smile, "Hey, Mr. Ding, don't be nervous." Xiao Ding scratched his head awkwardly. "I can't not be nervous. To tell you the truth, I also play Dota. I'm your fan." "That's a good relationship." "I didn't expect Mr. Ding to be a kindred spirit." Comrade Xiao Ding chuckled. "I've played for many years. I used to play on Haofeng. Back then, my level was okay. But now that I'm old, I only have about 2,000 points on the ladder. I play when I'm free. I can't compare to you." Chen Guang agreed. "Those who really like Dota are good people. It's fine as long as you're happy playing the game. You don't have to play to perfection. It's just a game, that's how it is." "Oh right, Chen Guang. What are your plans for this semester? Although you're a celebrity now, the school has rules and regulations. There are many people watching you. I'm afraid you'll have to face them head-on. Of course, if you want to play some tricks, I can help you talk to the school. The school leaders might agree, but I'm worried that if it gets out, it will have a negative impact on your reputation." Because of the game, Mr. Ding and Chen Guang chatted for a while. They gradually became less nervous and started talking about business. Chen Guang waved his hand nonchalantly. "There's no need to play some dirty tricks. I can pass." What a joke. The old man was famous for pressing the line. He was the king of rushing for exams. He was the king of 60 points. Although these 3 years of university were quite entertaining, he didn't fail any subjects. Well, except for the CET for exam. Since you're confident, I won't say anything more. But I still think that fame is fleeting. No matter how famous a celebrity was in the past, aren't there some who are living a hard life now? So, no matter if you're studying or becoming a celebrity, you have to learn as long as you live. You have to be strong to forge iron. The level of your cultural studies will have a long-term impact on your life. I'm relieved that you can think this way. You've been in university for 3 years. If you were in your first year, I would suggest that you take a leave of absence. But now that you're only in your last year, you have to grit your teeth and get through it. Chen Guang nodded. "Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Ding. I'll be careful." It was about 9 o'clock at night when he returned to the neighborhood outside the university. Enchanting was practicing yoga in the living room on the TV. To be honest, the difference between the Indian yoga and the external martial arts she learned in the Thousand Extremities sect was huge. However, she did not know who had boasted to her that practicing yoga could enhance her breasts, but she actually believed it. Chen Guang felt tired when he saw a beautiful loli in tight clothes moving around in the living room gracefully. Chen Guang squatted in front of her and stared straight ahead. "Well, Enchanting, let's discuss something." Enchanting was lying face down on the yoga mat. She bent her legs from the back and formed a C shape with her legs resting on both sides of her head. It was her flexibility that allowed her to perform such difficult movements when she had just started learning yoga. In a sense, her current posture was somewhat indescribable. Especially this little girl. She really did not know how to behave. She was wearing such tight clothes that it was indecent to look at her. This evil camel toe actually used such a shameful posture to face me. You shameless lowly, I must use my scrutinizing eyes to ruthlessly criticize you. Enchanting raised her head slightly to look at Chen Guang. Due to her awkward posture, she could not lift her head high enough. She could only see Chen Guang's crotch when she looked straight ahead. Shut up. You perverted old man. I know what you're thinking. Chen Guang swallowed his saliva silently. I heard that it's better not to wear tight clothes when practicing yoga. It won't be effective. Enchanting believed him. Should I wear loose clothes? Chen Guang shook his head. No, real yoga allows the practitioner's skin to be in direct contact with the Reiki of heaven and earth. During the exercise, the practitioner adjusts his breathing and state of mind. Every pore on the body opens, and there is no barrier to communicate with nature. Only this kind of yoga is real yoga. Enchanting looked at this guy's increasingly bulging crotch. Although I'm not well educated, you can't lie to me like this.
Bah.
And every pore is open. You're so wretched. Don't you want me to not wear it? Well, fine. Pretend I didn't say anything. Unexpectedly, Enchanting suddenly said loudly, sure. As she said that, she naughtily opened and closed her legs. Chen Guang covered his nose. He could not take it anymore. His nose was about to bleed. I can't believe that my knowledgeable master, who is also half a man living with women, was actually teased by a little girl to the point of excessive nutrition. This is not scientific. If she had not admitted that she was an adult, Chen Guang really wanted to turn himself into Wutong. Really? Do you want me to leave first? Or do you want to take it off directly? Chen Guang thought silently. It's not that I'm not determined, but the enemy's temptation is too strong. I can but the first chapter of the painting volume. Goodbye. Chapter 771. Chen Guang turned around and went back to his bedroom.
Damn it.
I eat my food, live my life, and spend my money. What's wrong with looking at a camel toe? It's not like I'll lose anything. So stingy. You actually have the face to mention the painting scroll to me? If it was someone else, I'd hang them up and beat them for 3 days for daring to covet the old man's divine power. I'd also have to buy 17 or 18 red candles and drip the hot wax on their little, but as if it was free. I'd also have to find hemp rope. Take it. Take it for me. Damn it, I must have been controlled by a devil recently. I can't believe my thoughts diverged in such a perverted direction. I'm a righteous person. It's all Enchanting's fault for leading me into the ditch. That's right. It's like this. I wanted to teach you how to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. You actually think of me as such a shameless person. Am I such a despicable person? The painting scroll is the treasure of the Wenwen family. Wenwen trusted me, so she gave it to me. You want to get the painting scroll with just a camel toe?
Dream on.
Am I that easily swayed? Are you kidding me? Even I'm scared of myself when my willpower is strong enough. He turned around and the pile driver hit the leg of the table.
Bang.
The table shook violently, and the leg almost broke. Chen Guang silently sat back on the chair. Let me chant the Great Compassion mantra to calm myself first. Although my body betrayed me, my soul is still pure. He returned to the computer. Today was the last lecture of Mr. Chen's lecture. The number of viewers in the chat room had reached a terrifying 40,000 people. I heard that to ensure stability, the top 10 airlines in the world even invested tens of millions of dollars to upgrade this casual chat room. They built a separate server. It could be seen how important Chen Guang's lecture was. Before the lecture officially started, Chen Guang was nervous for a few seconds. Whether he could complete the pilot statue depended on today. He took a deep breath and got to work. 3 hours later, Chen Guang tapped the table lightly and said in an impassioned tone, Everyone, I'll stop talking about the technical essentials I used during the forced landing. If you have any other questions in the future, you can talk to me in private. I have always been a helpful person. Everyone should know that I am very busy, but I will try my best to satisfy you when the time comes. This kind of public class, I'll be the good guy today and give it to you for free. But if you want more, you can find me in private. Please prepare the money. Thank you, Mr. Chen. You have been a great help. On behalf of the International Civil Aviation Association, we thank you for your contributions. After a unanimous discussion, we believe that you should be awarded a second medal. You are not only the hero of the aerospace industry, but you have also led the technological progress of the entire aerospace industry. Your contributions will benefit all of mankind. Chen Guang listened to the praises in the chat room. He did not know which company's boss was praising him. To be honest, as long as I have a hero medal that allows me to fly for free and always fly first class, that's enough. No matter how many other medals you give, it's useless. In the chat room, only a small number of people had the right to speak, but almost everyone could type.
It was lively now.
In the language chat box in the chat room, there were all kinds of compliments and comments in the live broadcast. If it was someone else looking at the various languages from all over the world, they would definitely be speechless. Unfortunately, the person sitting here was the best language master in history. Chen Guang could understand everything just by looking at it. All right, everyone stop praising me. Hurry up and help me build up the statue, okay? Even through the screen, Chen Guang could sense how attractive his piloting skills over the past 3 days were to the people in the chat room through those words. If it was as he expected, the professional technicians in the military should have sorted out a lot of private goods that could be used. But why hasn't there been any movement yet? What is the problem? Lying on the bed, he tilted his head and looked out of the window. His brain was also a mess. He thought about all the things that had happened recently, but he couldn't figure out what the problem was. There was one more thing that bothered him. Ever since this morning, the feeling of unease in his heart hadn't stopped. He thought it was because he had been away for too long and was not used to suddenly returning to school. During the day, he deliberately shifted his attention to other aspects and selectively ignored this strange feeling. But in the dead of night, when he was lying on his bed alone, this feeling emerged from the depths of his mind and became more and more intense. Chen Guang was sure that there were many reasons for this situation. It was very complicated, but there was no doubt that something must have happened, and it would not be a good thing. Maybe it had something to do with the statue not being erected. Or perhaps it had something to do with a strange situation between him and Wenwen. If not for the Holy Grail's interference, a righteous person like him, Wenwen would not have been able to turn him into a human-shaped aphrodisiac. She would not have been able to control herself whenever he got close to her. Sigh. Our family's big sister cheat is not the same as what is written in web novels. Other people's grandpas were omniscient and omniscient. Once the male lead with the protagonist's halo encountered any problems, the accompanying grandpa could come up with 10,000 solutions in a minute. The male lead only needed to stretch out his little finger and randomly choose one of the 10,000 solutions that looked more pleasing to the eye to make a decision, and that would be it. Or else, it would give the male lead a complete set of easy and pleasant leveling up routes. As long as he happily follows the fixed route and walks step by step, he can become immortal in minutes, unify the world, become a winner in life, and walk to the top. But why does it have to be me? If something happens, our portable grandma will either not know anything or pretend to be dead and not online. Sigh, just thinking about it makes my head explode. At this moment, there was another knock on the bedroom door. It was Enchanting. Swollen chrysanthemum? Are you there? Are you asleep? Chen Guang was not in a good mood at the moment. He slapped his forehead. Don't mess around. Let's talk tomorrow. I'm a little tired now. Unexpectedly, Enchanting did not listen to him and knocked on the door again. It's not like that. I don't know what's going on either. I was lying on the bed just now, and my heart suddenly felt very fast. I'm afraid that my master, Chen Guang, sat up straight on the bed and opened the bedroom door in his pajamas. What's going on? Didn't they leave in the afternoon?
Yes.
Looking at the time, they should have just gotten off the plane. I also called my master just now. She said that she has just settled down and plans to secretly go to Mount Baral tomorrow morning. Then everything should be normal. What are you afraid of? Enchanting was still frowning. I don't know, but I'm afraid. I'm not joking, really. I'm really scared. Looking at how confident she was, Chen Guang's brows knitted together. He felt that he must have been possessed today, and something seemed to be amiss. Oh, right. I forgot to tell you. Xiao Miao Miao and her master went together. But she... Chen Guang raised his eyebrows. What about her? Xiao Miao Miao also said that she doesn't feel at ease. Just now, she was still chatting with me on WeChat. She wanted to persuade Xuelin and Master to change their schedule. As she said that, Enchanting did not care about being reserved. She grabbed Chen Guang's hand and pressed it against her chest. It's true. My heart is really beating very fast. Even with a full bosom between them, Chen Guang's palm still felt as if it was being patted repeatedly. Her heartbeat was really frightening. Sensing the intense vibrations in his palm, Chen Guang's heart seemed to be attracted as well, beating at the same frequency as Su Tao's. A strong sense of crisis fell from the sky and completely enveloped him in an instant. The realm of punishment is about to descend. Savior, please get ready. At this moment, a familiar electronic voice suddenly rang in his heart. The voice was very calm and emotionless, but in that instant, it made his hair stand on end. He finally knew what he had overlooked. Yes, it was the realm of punishment. On the plane, he had used the power of the realm of life when he was in danger. Now, it was time to pay the price. The last time, in order to save his mother, he had used the power of destiny just to obtain a perfectly compatible kidney transplant. In the end, he had dragged Wu Tong into the punishment realm. If he had not been stubborn enough to charge forward fearlessly and rescue her from the hands of Shijiu, she would have died a long time ago. At that time, Chen Guang had no experience in fighting against international terrorists. He had almost no ability to protect himself when he was in danger. If he had not had a flash of inspiration to put the grenade thrown by the other party into the Holy Grail and relied on Azure's help to release the explosive power of the grenade, he would not have had a chance of winning. Although it had been a long time, the feeling of walking on the edge of death was still fresh in his mind. Azure once said that using the power of fate would definitely cause a backlash, and the backlash would be stronger each time. The second backlash would be at least 10 times stronger than the first. The first time he used the realm of punishment, he had caused such a huge commotion. Needless to say, the intensity of the second backlash would be far beyond his imagination. He had been too busy for the past 2 days, so he did not expect the realm of punishment to come so quickly. That was why he had subconsciously neglected it. Now, whether he wanted to or not, he had to face reality. After a whole day of preparation, the realm of punishment appeared in front of him in an extremely sudden and natural manner. This was the reason why he had been feeling uneasy the whole day. As for why Enchanting and Wu Miaoan felt the same sense of crisis, Chen Guang soon found out the reason. His hand was still on Enchanting's chest and did not move away. However, as the heavenly Holy Grail's electronic voice rang out, the invisible yet seemingly substantial power of the Holy Grail surged out from the heavenly Holy Grail that was placed on the bedside table. Like a wave, it spread out and enveloped the entire room. As the master of the Holy Grail, Chen Guang could sense that the power of the Holy Grail did not stop. Instead, it continued to spread out in all directions at an extremely fast speed. Although the power of the Holy Grail was becoming thinner and thinner as the space it enveloped continued to expand, this mysterious power was like a noodle that could never be pulled apart. No matter how thin or thin it was, it still existed. Until the entire Earth was enveloped by the Holy Grail, until the entire universe, or perhaps the universe in a narrow sense, was also enveloped by the power of the Holy Grail. Chen Guang's consciousness merged with the Holy Grail. In an instant, his consciousness seemed to have been brought to an extremely faraway place by the power of the Holy Grail, allowing him to roam to his heart's content. Although he found it extremely inconceivable and difficult to understand, there was no doubt that the entire universe was enveloped by the power of the Holy Grail. At this moment, everything in this universe was enveloped by the power of the Holy Grail. It was as if a person with 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls had been forcefully stuffed in, becoming 3 spiritual souls and 8 physical souls. Everything in the universe had an additional attribute. In the air, beyond Earth, in the vacuum, in the distant Centaurus galaxy, beyond the range of vision of 13.8 billion light-years, the endless void 46 billion light-years away, and even further away, everything was completely enveloped by the power of the heavenly Holy Grail. Ever since he obtained the heavenly Holy Grail, this was the first time Qin truly felt how terrifying and powerful the Holy Grail was. The last time he entered the punishment realm, he had a feeling that the real world had also become a realm within a cup for a period of time. However, at that time, the power of the Holy Grail was too thin and could not bear the weight of his consciousness. That was why he had hidden this conjecture in the depths of his heart and could not verify it. It was only today when he suddenly tried and successfully merged his consciousness into the Holy Grail. Only then did he understand that when the punishment realm was activated, what changed was not what he saw in front of him, nor was it that he was pulled into the realm within a cup created by the Holy Grail. Instead, it was that the entire universe had become a realm within a cup. Even after his consciousness merged into the power of the Holy Grail, he could not truly see. He could only form a perception and judgment in his heart to know whether something in a certain place existed or didn't exist. He did not know exactly how big the universe was. He was also not sure if the universe had a boundary. He was also unable to see what existed beyond the boundary. However, from the feedback from the heavenly Holy Grail, he knew that the entire universe had become a realm within a cup. This was because time had come to a standstill at this moment. In a sense, in the vast universe, all the existences of matter or antimatter were connected to each other. To put it simply, it could be said to be the gravitational force. Assuming that the universe had a boundary, a speck of dust on the leftmost edge of the universe, and a speck of dust on the rightmost edge that was billions of light-years away from it would still have a gravitational force. It was just that the magnitude of this force was so small that it could not be expressed using mathematics. However, no one could deny its objective existence. In that case, if one wanted to completely stop time in a certain small area, but the entire universe was eternally moving, the so-called butterfly effect could be magnified to the entire universe. Even if it was only a ping-pong ball that had stopped completely on Earth, the infinitely magnified butterfly effect would cause the eternally moving universe to be completely torn apart. Therefore, there was only one way to achieve a complete standstill in time, or to slow down time. That was to completely freeze or slow down the entire universe. The last time, when Qin had appeared in court to judge Wang Ren and Su Lijing, the heavenly Holy Grail had risen from the spirit sky realm to the one-line sky realm. At that time, a similar situation had occurred. However, at that time, Qin had not been able to integrate his consciousness into the power of the Holy Grail, so he could not sense so much. At that time, time had not been completely stopped. It was as if someone had pressed the slow button, and the flow of time had become extremely slow. However, this time it was for real. For the second realm of punishment, the heavenly Holy Grail had frozen the entire universe, causing trouble. Must the second realm of punishment cause such a huge ruckus? Also, I don't even have the ability to get you to give me some small favors. If I want to get muscle training, I have to save up my own faith. Every time the realm in the cup was activated, I had to wait for Lazuli to recover her divine power and for the heavenly Holy Grail to recover its power. Why is it that when it's time to punish me, you have to make such a huge ruckus? You're my family's golden finger. Are you trying to say that you've been saving up your power all your life to prepare a big move? Not to help me, but to mess with me? King retard. Boss, can I return the goods? Please give me a more conventional cheat. I can't take it anymore. Focusing on tricking me for 20 years. My heart hurts so much that I can't breathe. Forget it. I'll pinch it to my heart's content before I die. Anyway, time has stopped, Little Enchanting doesn't know anything. The elasticity of this steamed bun is pretty good. My life has been worth it. Chapter 772. However, when he pinched Enchanting, he noticed that the power of the Holy Grail lingering around her body was much denser than in the doorframe at the same distance from him. Perhaps the reason why Enchanting and Wu Miaoan both felt an inexplicable sense of danger at the same time was because the two Lolas had stayed with him for too long, and they had been contaminated with a lot of the Holy Grail's power. Therefore, when their closest kin, who was also their master, was dragged into the punishment realm, they both felt a strong sense of danger at the same time. Especially Wu Miaoan, who was also dragged into it. As for the others, they didn't feel anything at all, perhaps because they didn't have much contact with Guang. Perhaps Xuelin should be able to sense this, but he had been in a precarious situation for a long time recently. This time, he was going out to carry out an important mission, so it was not strange for him to feel a sense of urgency and depression. He thought that he was being vigilant, but he didn't know that it was precisely because of his vigilance as a soldier that the entire task force was in danger. However, he couldn't be blamed for this, because this matter was far beyond his understanding and imagination. Although Xuelin was Guang's only disciple, he was first and foremost immortal. At most, he was just a mortal who was slightly more powerful than ordinary people. The punishment realm will descend in 1 minute. Countdown begins.
60.
59. 58. Since when was there such a precise countdown before entering the Holy Grail realm? This was unprecedented, and Guang panicked. How cruel must the punishment realm be for the Holy Grail to be so human-like as to give him a countdown? He hurriedly rushed to the bedside table, picked up the cup, and immersed his consciousness into the Holy Grail. The situation was urgent, and he had to ask Azure for 2 silk sachets before he officially started work, just in case. When he entered Cloud City, Azure had indeed come out from the leaves of the Dirkrai fruit. She was sitting under the Dirkrai fruit with a frown, and no one knew what she was thinking. Guang went up to her. "Lord Azure." Azure waved her hand. "All right, you don't need to say anything else. When you call me Lord, the next sentence you usually say is help me. All right, you really know me. This time, I'm really going to explode on the spot. On account of the fact that we have been together for so long, on account of the fact that I am your sweet little cotton-padded jacket, on account of the fact that in order to become stronger and one day free you from the Holy Grail, I have always been racking my brains and never giving up. Please help me." Liuli turned her head and silently looked at this ungrateful wretch. She had long seen through this fellow's nature. When he needed you, his attitude was very kind, as if he wanted to hold her in his hands like a treasure. But when he didn't need you, his tail would rise to the sky at any moment. This kind of person, to put it nicely, was heartless, and at worst, he was an ingrate. All right, Liuli knew that this was Guang's personality. Even if he was grateful in his heart, he wouldn't let you please him verbally. If I didn't know what you were thinking in your heart, I would have been angered to death 17 or 18 times. Sigh. I told you before that this power of destiny cannot be used easily. Once you use it, you have to be mentally prepared to pay the price. You tried it once last time, and I also told you that the punishment you will face the second time will be 10 times stronger. Why are you so good at courting death? Why didn't you listen? You still have to court death yourself, sigh. Liuli sighed, looking as if she was mourning his misfortune and angry at his lack of ambition. Guang spread his hands. You're blaming me? I was so unlucky to encounter that kind of thing on the plane. I couldn't do anything about it. All right, since things have already come to this, let's do something practical. Actually, Guang felt sorry for himself. Don't just focus on lecturing me. Back then, wasn't it because you pretended to be dead and didn't move? I had no choice but to use the power of destiny. Liuli chuckled. All right, I'll give you the 4-word mantra. When you are in danger, just recite these 4-word mantra, and you will definitely be able to turn misfortune into fortune. Guang was overjoyed. Really? Hurry up and speak. Liuli took a deep breath and chuckled. These 4 words are, pray for your own good fortune. F asterisk CKU. Lu Minghua, who had been eavesdropping on the conversation between the two of them, couldn't help but laugh out loud. Chen Guang, Sister Liuli really didn't lie to you. In the ordinary world within the cup, we can still protect you a little, but in this world of punishment, Sister Liuli and I really don't have any methods. Chen Guang shouted. Such a despairing thing. Don't say it so lightly. There are only 10 seconds left. Quickly tell me what this unlucky world of punishment is like. Liuli spread out her hands again. Next, I'm going to give you the 3-word mantra.
What?
I don't know. Oh my God. You. I can't do it anymore. My heart feels so uncomfortable. If it wasn't for his big heart, Chen Guang felt that sooner or later, he would be angered to death by Liuli. Unfortunately, he didn't have any chance to complain about the immorality of Liuli and Lu Minghua. The countdown in the depths of his mind finally reached the final 3, 2, 1, and then the electronic voice sounded again. The fusion of the real world is complete. The world of punishment is activated. It's coming. Chen Guang's consciousness was uncontrollably pulled out of the world within the cup, and in a flash, he returned to the real world. Enchanting had already woken up, and time began to flow again. She was a little confused and didn't know what happened. As if she was just stunned for a moment, Chen Guang ran to the bedside table. What's wrong? Did I lose my memory? Enchanting scratched her head and said. Chen Guang shook his head and didn't have the mood to talk. Instead, he immersed his mind in the Holy Grail in his hands. Where's the activation? It's moving. What should I do now? Where's the mission? Also, what the hell is the fusion of the real world? Why don't I know about the real world? It sounds very high-end, but I don't have any impression of it. Is there anything special about the fusion? What did the real world fuse with? What's the next step? What should I do now? Don't try to scare me, okay? Chen Guang looked around in a daze. What he saw was still the same as before, but in his perception, he clearly felt that everything in the world that he saw was more mysterious and difficult to understand than before. He walked to the window, opened the curtains, and looked at the bright moon hanging in the sky. The bright moonlight sprinkled on the ground like snow. The clouds, the moon above the clouds, the light on the ground, everything looked normal to the naked eye, but in his heart, he felt that it had changed. The whole world had changed. From the looks of it, the so-called fusion of the real world probably referred to the whole world becoming the world in the cup. Although he didn't know what changes had happened in the Holy Grail, otherwise it wouldn't have reminded him. The heavenly Holy Grail was emotionless and had no consciousness, but it definitely wouldn't say any nonsense just to tease him.
Don't worry about those small things.
You didn't lose your memory. Come and take a look. Chen Guang called Enchanting, who was clueless, to the window. Enchanting looked out. What? Didn't you notice anything different? Enchanting shook her head. Nothing different, right? Is there a problem? Enchanting couldn't see anything. All right then. Shrugging his shoulders, Chen Guang responded. All right. Why am I in your room? Enchanting suddenly realized something and looked at him with a guarded expression.
Huh?
You've forgotten about it? Enchanting was completely confused. What did you forget? Chen Guang touched his forehead. Forget it. I shouldn't have counted on you. At this moment, the heavenly Holy Grail finally sent another message. The World of Punishment mission announced. Chen Guang was relieved. It's here. It's finally here. If there was a mission, there would be a goal. Otherwise, it would be too unsettling to stay in the punishment realm that was fused with the real world, which was also in the real world, blindly. Main mission: stay alive. F***. For a moment, Chen Guang couldn't hold it back and cursed. Your mission description is so simple and straightforward. I really have to thank your whole family. Enchanting looked at him blankly. What's the matter? Why are you scolding me for no reason? Don't be angry. Even if you want to do something with me, I won't blame you for drugging me and making me unconscious. But I was just asking you actually scolded me. Chen Guang looked back at her and laughed. You've forgotten. I don't blame you, but now is really not the time to joke with you. Someone is going to die, the electronic voice reminded again. If the main mission fails, the Redeemer will die. Chen Guang silently covered his heart. In my humble opinion, you really don't need to remind me again. Of course, I will try my best to stay alive. Main Mission 2. Destroy the headquarters of the extremist organization shattered within 48 hours. If the Main Mission 2 fails, the Redeemer will still die. F***CK. Since staying alive is the main mission, shouldn't the other missions be side missions? Why is it the second main mission? And if I fail, I will still die. Are you crazy? Alright, forget it. Anyway, it's the world of punishment with 10 times the difficulty. I can accept it if it's more brutal. I had sent out so many people. Enchanting and Wu Miaowan's masters were leading the team, and Xuelin, who had been suppressing Shattered the World for the past few days, was also leading the team of 50 elites. I had even shamelessly borrowed some of the savage new equipment that I had seen during the individual military exercise from the old men and the bald-headed uncle. The strength of the task force was absolutely invincible. If there's no other way, I'll go to the Wujing military region and find a fighter jet to fly directly to Mount Baylor. I'll personally oversee it. A mere world of destruction. Although they claimed to be a super strong assassin organization, they were forced to flee like rats by a little brother of mine. They had no choice but to place their hopes on causing trouble within the country. Unfortunately for them, they ran into me, the one who planned everything and won every battle. This means that although their names are cool, they're actually not that scary. Now, we have 2 inner force experts, 50 elite warriors, and top-notch combat weapons developed by the entire nation of China. Not to mention that our technological level is much higher than yours. It's the same as 3 versus 1, and we're 60 people ahead of you. I'll directly flatten the floor. What's this called again? That's right, Flying Dragon Riding Face. A 3-attack flying dragon with 200 people against a mere 100 people of Shattered. Face A1. What's the use of hiding in Mount Baylor? Do you think your hiding place is undetectable? The invincible divine detective Chun Luoka has long heard your hiding place clearly. What's this called again? Right, this is a force field. What's the use of isolation? Therefore, destroying the world of destruction within 48 hours was not a problem at all. It's a sure win, easy, casual win. Wait a minute, this flag seems very familiar. Suddenly, the electronic voice from the Holy Grail sounded again. Main Mission 3. Rescue 55 hostages within 48 hours. Current number of rescued, 0. When the success rate of rescuing hostages is less than 60%, the mission will fail. If the mission fails, the rescuer will die. Chen Guang leaned against the wall and looked at the bright moon outside the window. Facing this situation, what can I say? Seriously, there are some things that I can't randomly raise flags for myself. I swear, I'll remove the words Flying Dragon Riding Face from my Xinhua dictionary. I really don't want to talk about poison anymore. This isn't poison. This is an illness, an incurable illness. Mission countdown. Remaining time, 27 hours 53 minutes 19 seconds. Chen Guang cursed again, omitting 3,000 words below. Where's the promised 48 hours? Liu Li silently said, counting from 8 a.m. yesterday, it's already been a little over 20 hours. Playing with me? You're completely playing with me. Chen Guang didn't even have the strength to lean against the wall. May I ask if it's a demon? I want to call the police. Call the police.
Chief.
My master. At this moment, Enchanting's mind finally cleared up. She also remembered why she appeared here. Chen Guang covered her mouth. All right, no need to say more. I understand. I'll go and rescue them now. I surrender. This time, Liu Li didn't persuade him to be a coward. Because if the mission fails, he will die. He didn't notice that among the 55 hostages calculated by the Holy Grail, there was one more than the 54 people he sent out. Chapter 773. Save them? Enchanting didn't expect Chen Guang to have such a big reaction. She just felt uneasy. It was a little like the folk saying that the left eyelid twitching is a blessing and the right eyelid twitching is a curse. However, She didn't expect the situation to be so serious that they had to save them. Moreover, with her and Chen Guang's abilities, it would be useless even if they rushed over now. Her master and Wu Miaowan's master were famous skin strength experts. Their skills were much stronger than bone strength martial artists like her and Wu Miaowan. However, Chen Guang nodded. That's right. Save them. Enchanting still thought he was joking. But how are we going to go?
They're overseas now.
Chen Guang shrugged. It's not how we're going, it's me. Wait, it sounds like you want to go too? Enchanting glared. Of course, that's my master. He's not your master. Chen Guang patted her shoulder. Your master will be happy that you can think that way. However, forget it.
You can't meddle in this.
Why can't I meddle? Enchanting said stubbornly. How could Chen Guang tell her that her master and his group were all involved in the punishment realm? Don't underestimate the punishment realm of the old man's heavenly holy grail. I'm trembling with fear just thinking about what I'm going to face now. 10 times the strength, the real world, and the real world were completely integrated. Chen Guang felt that it wouldn't be strange even if there was a Godzilla monster waiting for him there. Only he, the owner of the Holy Grail, could survive such a terrifying situation. As for the others, they should just forget about it. Shut up. The adults are doing things. Go play somewhere else. Waving his hand, Chen Guang strode out of his house. At the same time, he was pondering in his heart. It's one thing for Enchanting to take the risk with him, but if it's possible, he should borrow some troops from the old man or the Baldy. Just as this thought emerged in his mind, the heavenly Holy Grail gave him a hint. Attention, Redeemer. You are forbidden from seeking external help. Otherwise, the mission will fail and you will die immediately. Can't you be more reasonable? Can't I just think about it in my heart? Forget it, it seems like I really can't do it. I admit defeat. Ever since he obtained the Holy Grail and was forcefully tied to the ship, he had enjoyed a lot of benefits, and the scams he had done weren't that bad either. He really didn't know what was going on. After being cheated so many times, his nerves had become big, and his ability to withstand pressure was very strong. If it was in the past, his tears would really flow. But now, everything seemed to be very natural and natural. I've been tricked so many times that I'm numb to it. There's something wrong with my mind. Sigh, there's no need for me to treat it. That's it. If I can't rely on external forces, shouldn't they at least give me some help? Right now, I had trained my muscles to 70%, but there were still 30% of my weaknesses. I didn't know any special agent skills or firearms. If I had a gun in my hand, it would probably take me half a day to find the safety. The strength of my fists and kicks wasn't a problem. I could kill gods and Buddhas if I met gods and Buddhas. However, my opponents wouldn't honestly compete with me in terms of strength. They could turn me into a hornet's nest at any moment. In addition, the combat techniques that Chen Guang had mastered were mostly unorthodox hand-to-hand combat techniques that he had learned in the Sea of Transient. There weren't any well-formed routines, and he wasn't like an inner force martial artist who could channel his inner force into his muscles. He also wasn't like a special agent who had highly efficient killing methods. He wasn't a soldier king, nor was he a martial arts expert. He was just a great pirate who had drifted on the sea for a few years and knew how to trade injuries for injuries. It wouldn't be a problem for him to act cool and scare one or two opponents or professional boxers. Or it could be the same as when he saved Sun Xiaoxuan back then. He could make use of his information advantage and charge out from an unexpected place at lightning speed. He could rely on his overwhelming strength to kill his opponent instantly. He was good at acting cool, but he wasn't good at risking his life. If he didn't show his trump card, he would feel a little anxious. However, what awaited him was the lair of the Shattered World. God knew how many assassins there were in that place. In the end, he didn't get the trump card he wanted. The heavenly Holy Grail in his backpack didn't give him any notifications even when he boarded the military transport plane from Beijing to Mount Baylor. It only gave him a mechanical countdown every half an hour. It was like a death knell telling him that he didn't have much time left to live. Furthermore, he couldn't get rid of Enchanting. It wasn't that he was stubborn enough to drag Xi and Qin into danger. It was just that the little girl's stubbornness was acting up. She wouldn't let him go out without her. What was worse was that he was in the punishment realm. His holy grail had taken over this world. He was the child of destiny. No, he was the abandoned child of destiny. Yet, he couldn't defeat her. It was really sad. However, although the heavenly holy grail forbade him from asking for help from others, it didn't stop Xi and Qin from joining it. It was obvious that Xi and Qin had been calculated to be his help from the very beginning. In terms of online games, Xi and Qin was his teammate. Now, the two of them were going to form a party to clear a dungeon. In addition, Uncle Jiang, who was in charge of communicating with him, was quite worried when he suddenly received a request to send him overseas in a military transport plane. However, Chen Guang didn't tell him the truth. He only told him that as the director of the Guangdong General Administration, this was his first time sending a task force overseas for a big operation. He wouldn't feel at ease if he didn't personally oversee the operation. Director Chen, why don't we land at an airport near our destination? We don't have to parachute, do we? The instructor of the transport plane sat next to Chen Guang, feeling wronged. Oh, right. The captain was sitting on the other side, holding a pen and paper with a sincere expression. He wrote down every step Chen Guang took. Before they took off, the captain, who had more than 10,000 hours of flying experience, was overshadowed by Chen Guang. Chen Guang had a good reason. He was flying better than him. He was in a hurry, so he had to fly faster. The captain didn't quite understand. Didn't a normal pilot fly the plane at the same speed? Could it be that Chen Guang could race like a car? But forget it. Chen Guang was the director of the Guangdong General Administration, and he was also known as the best pilot. Not to mention, the captain also listened to the lessons in the chat room for the last 2 days. He admired Chen Guang from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, it was 5 in the morning. Xi and Qin was also a little tired and was trying to catch up on her sleep. On the other hand, Chen Guang didn't feel tired at all. On the contrary, he was full of energy. This was probably the first benefit of being the savior. His time seemed to have been reset, and every second was filled with energy.
No.
If we land at the airport and then find a car, I'm afraid we won't make it. Chen Guang decisively rejected the instructor's suggestion. The instructor was helpless to see him being unreasonable and stubborn. But you don't have any experience in parachuting. I'm worried that you, Chen Guang said. Before I successfully landed DL 199333, I didn't have any experience in flying a plane. It's just a parachute. It's not worth mentioning. Isn't it just opening the parachute in the air? I can't faint in the state of weightlessness, right? But, no buts. I'm your superior. I have the final say. This is an order. Hurry up and prepare a parachute for me. Being one rank higher was useful. In the distant Yanjing, baldy old Jiang was helpless when he heard Chen Guang was being unreasonable and stubborn. The back of his head hurt for a while. In order to use this plane in an emergency, it was not as simple as driving it out of the airport. They also had to urgently communicate with neighboring countries. At the same time, they had to temporarily adjust the domestic civil aviation route planning to prevent flight route conflicts in the air. Although the flying altitude of military aircraft was not as high as civil aviation, they couldn't rule out the situation of colliding with the aircraft taking off. It was just a simple takeoff, but it affected the whole situation. The price paid was not simple. Halfway through the flight, Xi and Qin suddenly screamed and woke up. She stared at Chen Guang with her eyes wide open. Chen Guang, who had turned on autopilot, stretched and looked back. He forced himself to calm down. Why are you so surprised? Xi and Qin's face was pale, and her eyes were hollow. I just had a dream. I dreamed that my master... What's wrong?
Don't scare me.
Chen Guang's heart, which he had tried so hard to calm down, was suddenly in his throat. Master forgot to bring a change of clothes. Damn it. Go to sleep. I'll beat you up if you get up again. Chen Guang's body stiffened. He was so angry that he almost died. He couldn't be bothered with Xi and Qin anymore. He turned to the captain beside him and said, "Help me get a cup of herbal tea." I need to drink it to calm down.
Damn it.
Director Chen cursed and drank a cup of herbal tea before speeding up. Be reasonable. You don't have to remember such things. This has nothing to do with piloting skills. He turned to look at the gray sky. It was past 6 in the morning. Although the sun had yet to rise, the sky was gradually turning white. At that moment, Lord Guang still didn't know what was waiting for him. Chapter 774. Initially, he thought that the area around him should be where the power of the Holy Grail was the densest. However, the moment he crossed the border and entered the neighboring country, he realized that he was wrong. Others could not see any difference, but he clearly realized that although the sky was still the same, the world here was completely different from his own country. The dense power of the Holy Grail was like liquid. If he deliberately tried to sense it, it would even make him feel sticky all over, as if he had fallen into a swamp. Seeing him frown slightly, the captain sitting next to him asked cautiously, "Director Chen, what's wrong? Is there a problem with the plane?" Chen Guang checked the preset autopilot route and sat up. "It's nothing. Take over the plane. I'm going to rest." There was less than an hour before they reached their destination. When they reached the destination, the plane would not land. Chen Guang and Enchanting would parachute directly. The destination of the two parachuting was the town that the Shattered World Task Force was temporarily staying at, called Utopia. Utopia was located at the foot of Mount Burrell. From there, they would hike up the mountain and pass through the forest. After about 10 hours, they would reach the depths of Mount Burrell. If there were no accidents, this operation should be a very standard jungle special operation. Apart from the two martial arts seniors and Wu Miaoan, everyone else had rich experience in this. Of course, the task force would not come together with great fanfare. Instead, they would first quietly land at the military airport of the neighboring country. After that, they would all split up and use various means to reach Utopia. Then, they would quietly sneak into the town and hide separately. The former elite employees of the Special Affairs Bureau and the special agents of the Security Bureau had their own means. The two seniors and Wu Miaoan traveled with Xue Lin, disguised as tourists, and stayed at the hotel in Utopia. The neighboring country was also mostly made up of Asians. In addition, Utopia was close to the scenic Mount Burrell, so there was a lot of human traffic. The group's stealthy infiltration should not be easily seen through. Enchanting was sleeping soundly on the wooden bed. She was carefree and had a good sleep. Chen Guang lay on the other wooden bed next to her. He turned his head to look at her, envious of her carefree nature. However, she did not know that the two of them were in the punishment realm. Although she was upset and had a sense of crisis in her chest, it was not surprising that she could sleep. Just what kind of tricks was this punishment realm up to? This thought emerged in Chen Guang's mind again. Although he hadn't slept for a day and a night, his spirit was still so excited, and he didn't feel tired at all. He was especially annoyed by this kind of situation. He knew that something would happen, but he still came. He didn't have much time left. However, until now, there was still no concrete information. Just now, he secretly picked up Enchanting's phone and sent a WeChat message to Wu Miaoan, asking her what she was doing. A few seconds later, Wu Miaoan replied, saying that she could not sleep and was scared. But if you asked her what she was afraid of, she didn't know. He asked her if there was anything unusual, but she replied that everything was normal. It was just that there was no signal on the TV, which was a little annoying. It was obvious that Wu Miaoan was in a very safe situation. Otherwise, she would not be in the mood to watch television to relieve her tiredness. But when he told her not to be afraid, she would say something else. Her heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was about to jump out of her throat. She couldn't control her emotions at all. About an hour ago, Wu Miaoan had secretly gone to her master, who was sleeping next to her, who was the beautiful woman in flowery clothes. She hoped to postpone tomorrow's operation, but her request was rejected. Her master's exact words were, "What are you afraid of? This is our first operation since we came to the Guangding General Headquarters. The reason why Abbess Xian Yuan and I came with you is to establish the position of Thousand Despair Sect and Myriad Flower Valley in the Guangdong General Headquarters as soon as possible. Don't think that you and Xian Qin are the deputy chiefs, but that's only because we stood on the side early and the two of you are valued by Qin Guang. That's why you have today's position. Now that more and more sects are joining us, it's different. Even Plainclothes Sect and Fist Sect of the 8 major sects have come in person, and 7 out of the 27 sects have come. There are crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the general headquarters. If we don't pay attention, we'll lose our position. You guys, don't be ignorant just because you're by Qin Guang's side. It's easy to start a business, but it's hard to keep it. Our Myriad Flower Valley and Thousand Despair Sect are already declining. If we don't fight, the sects will completely decline. How can I face our ancestors then? Wu Miaoan argued. Head Chief Qin isn't that kind of person. The beautiful woman in flowery clothes patted her head and looked at her disciple with a doting gaze. You're so loyal to Qin Guang. I have nothing to do with the head chief. Xian Qin is the one who has something to do with him, not me. The beautiful woman in flowery clothes smiled without saying a word.
I know.
That's why I asked you to come with me to train you, right? First of all, there's nothing between you and Qin Guang. So, no matter what kind of person Qin Guang is, it has nothing to do with you. I'm sure of one thing. You're not considered one of his people now. Besides, how many men were good people? Today, he'll pledge his undying love to you, but tomorrow, he'll fall in love with the new. If you don't learn some real skills from me, how will you make him submit obediently? Master? Wu Miaoan recalled the things that her master had taught her these past few days. Her face turned red and her heart raced. She was ashamed and resentful. I've really misjudged you. I didn't expect Master to be this kind of person. Alright, I should have thought of it a long time ago. It's just that I wasn't mentally prepared. I'll have a day like this too. Don't act like a spoiled child. Do you think that it's over with just one success? Do you think that your little bit of skill is enough? In your dreams. Actually, I'm still worried. You're too ignorant. In my opinion, you should pull Xian Qin along as well. The two of you will be tied to the same boat. That way, you'll be able to sit back and relax. Master. All right. We still have business to attend to tomorrow. Go and rest first. We'll talk another day. In short, you have to know that the glory you and Xian Qin have now is only on the surface. If one doesn't think about the future, they'll have to worry about the present. Not only can we not postpone tomorrow's operation, we have to do it beautifully. Tomorrow, you'll be by my side. Although your skills are a little lacking, you'll definitely have no problem dealing with ordinary people. Just like that, Wu Miaoan was forcefully pushed back to her room by her master, Wu Qingming. Qin Guang knew that the task force was still very safe. He had also thought of summoning them back, but just as the thought surfaced in his mind, it was rejected by the heavenly Holy Grail. Unlike the previous reminder, it did not warn him not to do so. Instead, it bluntly told him that the retreat order would not succeed because they were already trapped. Qin Guang was even more bewildered. Wu Miaoan's reply clearly stated that they were currently hiding in their respective hiding places. Xuelin was still communicating with everyone, so where did she get the idea of being trapped come from? That was ridiculous. Around 7 in the morning, the instructor of the transport plane walked over with 2 backpacks and said, Director Qin, we'll be arriving at Wutua town soon. Here are 2 parachute bags. You must remember the main points of parachuting just now. Qin Guang nodded.
Got it.
Then, he knocked Xian Qin awake. Wake up, sleepyhead. We're going to parachute. Xian Qin opened her sleepy eyes and took the backpack from Qin Guang in a daze. She rubbed her eyes and asked, Are we there yet? Of course. You're still sleeping. Qin Guang tied the backpack on his back while giving instructions to the instructor. The instructor's nagging made Qin Guang really afraid that something would go wrong. He was such a high-ranking official, and his first parachute jump was from his own plane. If something went wrong, he would be the scapegoat, and he would not be able to handle it. He tugged at Chen Guang's sleeve and pointed to the rope on the right side of the backpack. Director Chen, this is the rope. You must remember it well. After you jump, count to 20 in your heart and pull it. You must use all your strength. Oh, right, if you don't pull it the first time, don't panic. There's plenty of time to land. You can turn around and manually open the parachute. Okay. Thanks for the reminder, but you really don't have to worry. Chen Guang patted the instructor's shoulder and pointed to Enchanting beside him. Why don't you give her some instructions? The instructor turned to Enchanting again, but she waved her hand impatiently. I heard everything just now. It's just a rope. It's a piece of cake. I've parachuted a few times before. Don't be so long-winded. 3 minutes later, the plane descended to a safe altitude for parachuting. The speed had also slowed down to the critical line. It was time to jump. When Chen Guang jumped out, he could hear the wind whistling in his ears. The gale that blew against his face made it hard for him to breathe. However, he didn't panic in his heart and continued to count down. Although he told the instructor that it was his first parachute jump, it was actually a routine in his pilot training. He just did not deliberately train for it. After all, parachuting was just a simple parachute jump. There was no need for fancy jumps like diving. In fact, he felt very at ease. Anyway, there was still a long way to go. As he counted down, he turned around and faced the sky. He saw that Enchanting had also jumped out of the cabin door. To be honest, parachuting in the fresh morning air under the morning sun really made people feel relaxed and happy. He touched his side and found the rope. Holding it in his hand, he felt more at ease. They were getting closer and closer to utopia. In short, it did not matter what the situation was. Anyway, I'm here. Come, realm of punishment. Let me see how good you are. Right. I seem to have forgotten something? Oh my god. ****. My holy grail is still in the other bag. I didn't take it off on the plane. ****. Damn it. Fortunately, I had the communicator on my waist. I gave the old man 2 seconds to calm down. Then I let that damn instructor throw me down. At this time, about 100 meters behind Chen Guang, Enchanting seemed to be searching for something. Chen Guang narrowed his eyes slightly. Although he was far away, Enchanting's pale little face was exceptionally clear in his fiery eyes that relied on the divine dart technique. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong. She seemed to be panicking. Enchanting began to twist her body, trying to find the so-called emergency switch. She also turned her body in a circle. In the next second, when Chen Guang saw the bag on her back, he instantly understood what was going on. Isn't that my ****king bag? Enchanting also stared blankly at the bag that was pulled to her side. Her whole body froze in the air. A heart-wrenching scream came from the walkie-talkie. It was that instructor. Director Chen. Deputy Director Enchanting took the wrong bag. Chen Guang covered his face. Sigh. Enchanting was also dumbfounded. She clearly remembered that she took the parachute bag. Why did she take the wrong one? Why was this happening? Wasn't that instructor very responsible? Why didn't he notice it before she jumped down? Chen Guang's back was facing the wind. His heart was cold. So exciting! Just now, the electronic voice of the Holy Grail sounded again. Warning! Warning! The first stage of the realm of punishment has arrived. Supreme bad luck. Redeemer. Pray for the best. Just like that, the overly exciting journey to the punishment realm appeared in front of the two of them in a dazzling manner, catching them off guard. Chapter 775. Damn you. You better pray for yourself. Why did these words sound so annoying? How could a normal parachute carry the wrong bag? I've been tricked by the heavenly Holy Grail again. This phenomenon was so abnormal and strange that it made one's balls break, okay? Although Enchanting was a little muddle-headed at times, she was actually very reliable. She had been in charge of the Guangdong General Administration for a long time, and she had never made any mistakes. Taking the wrong bag while parachuting was something that could cost one's life, was not something that would happen normally. Therefore, Just as the heavenly Holy Grail said, he and Enchanting were now shrouded in supreme bad luck. When she was carrying the bag on her back, she was dominated by an inexplicable, mysterious force. Her brain froze, and she unknowingly took Guang's bag. Unfortunately, Guang's hiking bag was of excellent quality and well-made. The straps were almost no different from parachuting bags. Even Enchanting, who boasted that she had parachuted a few times, didn't realize it at all. She even felt that the straps were especially sturdy. Not only that, under the influence of supreme bad luck, the originally serious and responsible transport counselor put too much attention on Guang, the director of the Guangdong General Administration. As for Enchanting, who was a deputy, she acted very professionally, confidently, and impatiently. The counselor didn't notice it, and the result was like this. Guang silently picked up the communicator on his waist and said to the counselor inside, "I already know. What should we do?" The counselor was still wailing at the top of his voice. "You're asking me?" The counselor was stunned. Yes, he was the counselor on the plane. He was supposed to guide Guang and Enchanting in parachuting. What should he do when something like this happened? There was no point. Enchanting heard the entire conversation between Guang and the counselor through the communicator, but her mind was blank. She didn't know what she was thinking and just stared blankly at the sky above her head, which was getting farther and farther away. At this moment, she only had one thought in her mind. It's over, I'm going to die. No matter how powerful a martial artist was, it was impossible to survive falling from such a height.
Guang.
Enchanting was still falling. She picked up the communicator and called Guang's name weakly. Guang quickly responded, "Okay, I'm listening. Enchanting gulped and said, "I'm going to die." Listening to her desperate tone, Guang wanted to crush the walkie-talkie.
No.
"You won't die. This was impossible. I won't allow you to die." Enchanting somersaulted in the air and faced Guang, looking at him from afar. The two of them continued to fall. "You don't have to comfort me. I've accepted my fate. Anyway, thank you for understanding my stubbornness for so long." "You're not willful at all. How considerate. Don't worry, you really don't worry. I'm thinking of a way. I definitely have a way." Guang subconsciously wanted to ask Luli for help, but he suddenly realized that the heavenly Holy Grail was in the backpack on Enchanting's back. He didn't know if it was because after the real world and the real world merged, he was also considered to be in the world in the cup. He actually couldn't return to Cloud City. His frantic shouting in his heart was useless. Maybe Luli chose to ignore him on purpose, or maybe Luli couldn't hear his calls for help at all. In short, he couldn't count on Luli and the heavenly Holy Grail. He had to rely on Luli's blessings. Guang, actually, don't talk. Don't interrupt my thoughts. I'm thinking of a way. Actually, I quite like you. Shut up. Enchanting's eyes gradually became misty. Let me talk a little more. I won't have a chance to talk to you in the future. Although I'm not good with words sometimes, and I often laugh at you and bully you from time to time, I actually just want you to pay more attention to me. I almost believed you. Guang interrupted her again. He didn't believe what Enchanting said at all. Although he had always been confident, he wasn't conceited. Although I'm handsome, I'm really not that handsome to the point where I can charm everyone I see, right? Besides, you're just a little Lolita. I feel that you're still underage, and can only look but not eat. What's the use of you liking me? At this moment, Enchanting must be saying these because she felt that she was definitely going to die. Her brain short-circuited and confused. She wanted to use these words to leave more impressions in his mind. She was afraid that she would be quickly forgotten after death. It must be like this. Forget it if you don't believe me. Anyway, it's like this. Anyway, I'm very happy to know you in this life. I hope that I can know you from the beginning in my next life. When a person was about to die, his words were kind. Since she got to know Guang, when had Enchanting been so easy to talk to?
Got it.
Suddenly, Guang shouted. Got what? Enchanting didn't understand. Guang said quickly like a machine gun. You adjust your posture like a fish. That's right, try to reduce the wind resistance and speed up the fall. Just now, he was confused because he was worried. In fact, Enchanting could still be saved. When Enchanting heard this, she glanced at him again and tried to twist her body again. As expected of a martial artist, even though she knew that she was going to die, she was still able to force herself to calm down. She twisted her body slightly and really became like a cannonball. She stretched out her hands, and in this way, the speed at which she was falling was actually a little faster. That's it. Keep this posture. As Chen Guang said, he opened his arms and forced himself to lie down and fall down. His falling speed was a little slower than before. The two of them, one fast and one slow, slowly pulled closer to each other. Are you going to catch me and share a parachute? Enchanting straightened her neck and asked. Chen Guang answered, Of course. Enchanting looked at the ground in front of her and calculated in her mind for a moment. The height seems to be not enough? And this parachute should be designed for a single person, right? Can the two of us handle it? Chen Guang curled his lips indifferently. Who cares? Let's do it first. How will we know if we don't try? But if we fail, you'll die too, right? Why do I have to be so cautious? I don't have time to think about what might happen. Let's try first.
Hey.
You'd better be obedient and maintain this posture. Don't think about dying alone. That kind of **T. Anyway, I will keep this posture until I catch you. If you don't want to kill me, behave yourself. Enchanting blushed. She really wanted to change to Chen Guang's posture just now to let him know that he couldn't catch her and let him back off. But as soon as this thought popped up in her mind, it was seen through. Since she met Chen Guang, although Enchanting was taken care of by him, most of the time, Chen Guang was quite unreliable. Most of the time, he was quite Chinibu. His success was mostly due to luck. Enchanting felt very relaxed when she got along with Chen Guang, and she liked the feeling of working with him. So, she resolutely gave up her identity as the president of the Armed Escort Association and became Chen Guang's little follower. On the surface, it was because hanging out with Chen Guang could make it easier to promote national darts with his influence in the darts industry. In fact, the real reason was not so complicated. It was nothing more than that it was fun to hang out with Chen Guang, that was all. As for becoming the deputy director of the Guangdong General Administration, it was an accessory that she got by chance. Her master, the sword-wielding nun, who was also Abbess Yuan, paid special attention to this matter. She didn't care as much as she imagined. Enchanting was actually a very casual person. She didn't think much about the future. But at this time, she had to admit that she was a little touched, so much so that her heart was pounding. He knew that it was likely that both of them would die, but he didn't care. Why are you doing this? I really didn't know that you were such a responsible person in the past. If I can really survive this time, I must be a real fan of yours. In midair, the two were still falling. They were getting closer and closer to the ground, and the distance between each other was also getting closer. It seems a little out of reach. Enchanting began to panic. Chen Guang shook his head while slightly adjusting his posture in the air. He made himself move slightly sideways during the process of falling and continued to get closer to Enchanting. The distance between the two had been reduced to less than 10 meters, but they were probably less than 3 kilometers away from the ground. It's really too late. Why don't you open your auxiliary umbrella and try to catch up? Chen Guang looked back at the ground, then turned back to look at Enchanting. He shook his head. Don't worry, I have calculated it. I can catch you when you are 400 meters away from the ground. Stop it. Your brain isn't a calculator. How did you calculate it? Chen Guang snorted. Intuition. Don't pin your life on such unreliable intuition. What else can I do? Chen Guang snorted. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. It's time. Enchanting was at a loss. What time is it? The next moment, under her dumbfounded gaze, Chen Guang curled his body in the air and took off his trousers. He then tied a knot at lightning speed. After that, he grabbed the trousers with both hands and lifted them up high. A strong gust of wind poured into the trousers, causing them to clap. This artificial parachute slowed down the speed of his descent. Thanks to the high quality of this year's new Versace autumn wear, such a strong tearing force did not tear the trousers. Enchanting was dumbfounded. You can do that? Hee, I just thought of an idea. Oh right, take off your trousers and throw them away. That way, your wind resistance will be lower. It will definitely work. Don't blame me for not realizing it until now.
My brain is also quite stiff at this time.
Humans were like this. When they were forced into a desperate situation, their potential had to be unleashed bit by bit. Old Master Guang's wit was not something that could jump out at once. He had to slowly squeeze it out bit by bit. Enchanting did as she was told. Her movements were simpler and more violent. She exerted force with both hands and tore the trousers. 2 seconds later, her 2 slender, white legs were straightened in the air. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone was in a bad situation, Guang really felt that Enchanting's legs were actually quite pleasing to the eye. They were really beautiful under the morning sun. What supreme bad luck. In front of the old man's wit, it was nothing. The speed at which the two of them approached increased a little. You've torn your bag, and clothes too, Guang shouted again. Since there was a telepathic connection between him and the heavenly Holy Grail, he was not afraid that he would not be able to find it after falling. Thus, Guang thought of a new idea. 3 seconds later, Enchanting's clothes were torn again. She pushed her backpack back with force, providing her with a little more strength to go down. Her fair and beautiful body accelerated towards Guang. This girl was actually not wearing the underwear of ordinary women. Instead, she was wearing a bra without straps. It seemed that she had been practicing yoga recently and really cared about this matter. A gust of wind blew hard on her body. Enchanting actually felt quite ashamed. This was not a deserted house. They were in the air, in broad daylight. However, the effect of her clothes being torn was also very obvious. She was falling like a cannonball, and her speed really became faster. The distance between the two of them rapidly decreased from 8 meters to 7 meters, 6 meters, 5 meters, 4 meters, 3 meters. Almost there. Almost there. Guang focused his eyes and stared at Enchanting, who was getting closer and closer to him. Enchanting looked at the ground behind Guang and felt very anxious. But the ground is getting closer and closer. It doesn't matter.
Ah!
Suddenly, Enchanting screamed. It was very simple. Without the shoulder straps, the strong wind brushed past the surface of her body. First, a crease appeared on her chest, and then she felt an even stronger pulling force. In the blink of an eye, her chest slipped off her body. Not only that, when it passed by her panties, it even pulled out the folds of her panties, causing them to fly off as well. However, at this moment, life and death were hanging by a thread. Enchanting did not dare to change her diving posture. She could only let her bra and underwear fall far away from her. The fair and beautiful lowly body continued to dive down from the sky. Behind her, a black bra and black silk panties floated in the air. How beautiful! Enchanting did not know whether she was shy or excited because she was about to be caught by Guang and have a chance to live. Her heart was beating like 10,000 deer, and her face was red as if it was scalded by boiling water. Coming. Guang knew the ground behind him was getting closer and closer. However, he did not care about that at all. He only wanted to catch Enchanting. Finally, their 5 fingers collided. Guang swung his body violently and grabbed Enchanting's wrist. Then he pulled hard. The two finally met in the air. Guang exerted his strength and spun his body in the air with her. Hold my waist. Enchanting had no time to be shy and did as he said. The next moment, Enchanting sat on Guang's waist. Guang's hands had never moved so fast. He untied the rope on the waist of the parachute in a flash. Then, he reached under Enchanting's crotch and tied her thighs. Then, he made a tight knot and tied the two of them together. Hold me tight. You must hold me tight. There is no time. I can only fix my legs. Even if you break my ribs, you can't let go, Chen Guang shouted. Enchanting nodded heavily. Okay, we are going to the bottom. I know. Chen Guang pulled the safety rope and the parachute opened. In a flash, it opened like a mushroom cloud above their heads. The rope on Chen Guang's back and waist lifted him up. His falling speed was suddenly reduced. Enchanting, who was riding on Chen Guang's waist, was about to turn over in the blink of an eye because only her thighs were tied to the rope. Harder. Break my ribs. After all, Enchanting was a martial artist at the peak of bone strength. Once she exerted her strength, she was not an ordinary person. Chen Guang only felt a creaking sound coming from his back. He was really going to be broken. Their center of gravity was not coordinated. Enchanting was still being pulled down. She tightened her grip on Chen Guang's waist and opened her legs. But she was still falling down. Suddenly, a certain part of Chen Guang's body suddenly pushed up. Then, with lightning speed, he drilled into a part of her body that was opened because of this embarrassing position.
Ah!
Enchanting screamed. Chen Guang said righteously, You can't blame me. When I was helping you with the rope, I accidentally touched the seam and was a little stimulated. Moreover, you are not wearing it. I can't control myself at all. Also, my part is very strong. One more fulcrum, one more safety. Yes, that's right. Air refueling, docking successful. Chapter 776. Enchanting and Chen Guang faced each other, grabbing his back tightly. She didn't know if it was because she was afraid of falling or because she couldn't control her body.
Hey!
Be gentle. Be gentle. Are you really trying to strangle me to death? At first, Chen Guang was still holding it in, but he couldn't take it anymore. His bones were cracking, as if they were about to break. I was just being polite when I asked you to break my ribs. Now that the situation is stabilized, don't take it seriously. If I don't shout, I'll get through the most dangerous moment and get seriously injured by you. Wouldn't that be a waste of my life? Enchanting was about to cry. Let go of me. Chen Guang asked quietly, Are you sure? Although the parachute had been opened and the speed at which they were falling had slowed down, they were still at least 200 meters from the ground. Enchanting turned to look to the side, then turned back and shook her head like a rattledrum.
Don't let go of me.
As she spoke, she tried to move her body up again, trying to break free from the invasion of something. However, Chen Guang had tied their legs so tightly that she couldn't move them. After a long time, it was useless, so she stopped moving and looked at Chen Guang pitifully. Actually, Chen Guang had wanted to take the opportunity to do something, but seeing how pitiful she looked, he felt awkward and didn't think too much about it. Sighing, Chen Guang said helplessly, Hey, if I said that I didn't mean it and that it was an accident, would you believe me? Enchanting didn't say anything and continued to stare at Chen Guang. Chen Guang felt guilty under her gaze. It's true. Believe me. It was really just a coincidence. How could I have known it would be so accurate? An accident. Okay? It was an accident. Enchanting was about to cry. I know it was an accident. Chen Guang was extremely distressed. Then don't look at me like that, okay? I'm feeling creepy. I can't control my emotions. I can't do anything about it. Although I just confessed to you, this is a little too fast. As Enchanting spoke, she patted Chen Guang's shoulder fiercely. No one knew whether she was acting coquettishly or feeling wronged. Then she said, We're about to land. You come out first. Chen Guang shrugged helplessly. I can't get out. Then can you soften first? What do you think? All right, forget it, Sai. Enchanting didn't say anything, and Chen Guang didn't know what to say in this situation. The two of them stared at each other, and the atmosphere was rather awkward. Are they on good terms? Of course. Was there a possibility that the two of them would develop into such a situation in the future? Of course there were, not to mention that Enchanting had just confessed to Chen Guang. But was this situation normal? Of course it wasn't normal. Who would have thought that something like this would actually happen? Just a few seconds ago, Enchanting was still confessing, and it was the kind of last words that were equivalent to leaving behind a will before death. She would only say a lot of things that she didn't dare to say normally, and she wasn't really mentally prepared. In the end, in the blink of an eye, they connected in the air. This kind of development was completely unexpected to Enchanting and Guang. Not even the gods could have thought of it. Therefore, this was one of the disadvantages of the strongest pile driver in history. Its reaction was also a little too fast. When Enchanting approached just now, Guang accidentally glanced at her a few more times. When he grabbed her and spun her in the air, he accidentally touched a slightly more sensitive spot. When he tied the rope for her, he accidentally touched a slightly more sensitive spot. It sounded complicated, but the whole process added up to less than 15 seconds. Who would have thought that the thief's reaction would be so fast and fierce? Who would have thought that when Enchanting sat down, she just happened to press down CK's underwear? Then there was a slurping sound, cough cough, forget it. It would be a waste of time to talk about these things. Although Guang would flirt with Enchanting from time to time, he really didn't think of doing such a beastly thing. Although Enchanting always said that she was already an adult, in Guang's opinion, this little girl was still too young and too cute. Why did I sigh? Sigh. He sighed heavily again. From now on, how should I face my life? Can I still proudly tell others that I am an upright person? This was not the most awkward thing. The most awkward thing was that he still couldn't take it out. Enchanting seemed to have accepted her fate. She tilted her head and looked at him. Why are you sighing?
Why?
Do you feel that you have suffered a loss? Guang shook his head. No, I just feel uncomfortable, Enchanting blushed. What are you uncomfortable about? My conscience is uncomfortable. I really feel uncomfortable. Enchanting suppressed the discomfort and rolled her eyes. She didn't know what to say to him. Forget it. Look at him. Anyway, this was the current situation. She might as well accept her fate. Actually, I don't blame you. It's just that you weren't mentally prepared. All of a sudden, Guang recalled something and asked, Oh, right. Let me ask you something. Are you really 18? Enchanting bit his shoulder harshly. I told you long ago that I'm 18 years old. Why don't you believe me? Sigh. Guang started to sigh again. Hence, a woman's mood was really a very complicated thing. Although Enchanting didn't look very reliable, she was still an authentic woman deep down. At the beginning, she felt very aggrieved. In the end, when Guang showed such a melancholy expression, she became more and more unhappy. She felt that Guang was taking advantage of her and was still pretending to be innocent. That's enough. Suddenly, Enchanting looked at him fiercely. Guang looked like he was about to cry. What's the matter now? What's the matter now? Enchanting glared at him angrily. Do you want to anger me to death? How can you be so unreasonable? You have a bad conscience, my ass. Do you think I'm that kind of petty person? Did I blame you for anything? No, I really didn't. Guang lied through his teeth. She clearly slapped, scratched, and hit him, but at this time, it was more important to make her happy. Enchanting said again, That's it. Besides, people who practice martial arts, people of the pugilistic world, don't have so many rules. Guang's eyes widened. He thought that he had underestimated little Enchanting. Such reasonable words actually came out of her mouth, and it seemed like she was comforting him. Hey, it's okay. It's really not a big deal. We were in an emergency situation. It's not a big deal that this happened. I almost died. You caught me, and then we used the same parachute to land safely. It's that simple. The distance between us is a little closer, so it became a negative number. Enchanting patted his shoulder again and said. Guang was very impressed. Thinking about it carefully, what she said really made sense. For some reason, he became upright again. Guang said loudly, That's right. Since it happened, we should face it together. But now we are about to land, and we are not completely out of danger yet. This is the most important thing. Enchanting nodded. Yes. In order to show that she really didn't care, she moved a little, looking very bold and unrestrained. In the end, she caused trouble. Originally, Chen Guang had a hard time controlling the pile driver's combat power. This time, he really couldn't keep it steady. Ah, 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 ah. Oh my god. Oh my god. I can't. You stop.
Stop.
Chen Guang tried to look at Enchanting calmly the whole time. Even when they landed, he forced his legs to support the ground first, using the strength of his legs to cushion the weight of the two people. Although the speed of the parachute landing was not slow, both of them were physically gifted. Although Chen Guang's chest was still at the level of an ordinary person, the strength of his legs and waist had completely exceeded the limit of a human, not to mention Enchanting. Finally, as Enchanting screamed at the top of her lungs, she finally collapsed to the ground, exhausted. The two of them were pressed under the parachute. Chen Guang lay flat on the ground as a human head cushion, covering his face, extremely helpless. Enchanting clawed at him randomly, screaming. When Enchanting finally settled down, Chen Guang carefully untied the knot and slowly put her down. As expected of a martial artist at the peak of bone strength, she actually didn't completely faint. Instead, she trembled on the ground and raised her head in a daze to look at him. You bad guy. Actually, old Master Guang was wronged. Really, he had already tried very hard to control himself. In fact, he hadn't even tried so hard in the first half of his life. But it was useless. The pile driver was moving on its own. Alas, if I had really done something bad, you would be foaming at the mouth and fainting on the ground. You don't know how much effort I've put into my plan. However, the two of them didn't have much time to dawdle. The heavenly Holy Grail didn't give Chen Guang any time to catch his breath. The first test, Supreme Misfortune, was successfully passed. The second test, Chen Guang stared at the umbrella cover with his head as his heart raced. He thought to himself, what would the second test be? The second test, Supreme Unrivaled Misfortune. Savior, please be prepared. F***CK. Can you be any more boring? Can you play some new tricks other than making me unlucky? The third test, Kill a Great Earthquake Tremor. A double test. Savior, please pray for your own good. F***CK. I just said it for fun. I didn't tell you to play any new tricks right away. What the hell is the third test before the second test is over? My mouth is a little too open. I'm done for. It's here. The familiar praying for your own good. Who are you, Duo Fu? What kind of dirty deal do you have with the Holy Grail? You stole the show today, Duo Fu. I don't want to beg you at all. Wait, what's a great earthquake tremor? I jumped out of the plane and originally planned to land near Wutua Town. But because I opened the parachute too late, I landed a lot earlier. So I should be a few kilometers away from Wutua Town now. But I should still be on Earth, right? It's at most 1,000 or 800 kilometers away from our vast Huaxia, right? But why did an even more baffling earthshaker suddenly appear out of nowhere? What the hell is going on? While his mind was full of questions, he felt the ground shake violently, as if a huge monster had landed not far away from him and Enchanting. There was no time to think. Chen Guang got up, spread out his hands, and grabbed the parachute curtain tightly. He used his Qilin arm and tore the parachute apart. Enchanting, who was still resting on the ground, screamed, "What are you doing? I'm not dressed yet." The next second, Zhong Enchanting stopped screaming. She and Chen Guang turned their heads and stared blankly at the 3-meter-tall monster not far away. Its whole body was made of yellow rock, but it was clearly in the shape of a human. This huge monster stood proudly about 20 meters away from the two of them. It had a head, but no face. Its body was slightly arched, and it was disproportionately long. Its arms, which were about half a meter thick, swayed in front of its body. It seemed to be very strong. As its body swayed, countless tiny dust and pebbles fell from its body. But what was even more strange was that at the same time, many pebbles and yellow mud floated up from the ground and stuck to its body, completely defying gravity. The pebbles and sand fell and floated up again, causing the yellow sand around the so-called Great Earthquake Tremor to fly. It looked really strange and indescribable. As if sensing Chen Guang's gaze, the Great Earthquake Tremor raised its two stone arms high and hammered its chest fiercely. The smoke and dust became even thicker. Roar. It was actually roaring. It didn't even have a mouth, so how did it make this sound? What is this? What is this? What the F*** CK? What exactly is the real world? This doesn't look real at all, okay? Chen Guang finally lost his composure and screamed out loud. The world of punishment this time was really beyond his imagination. Chapter 777. The parachute curtain that Enchanting was holding tightly slipped from her palms. She was so shocked that she forgot about the fact that she was exposed. After roaring, the Great Earthquake Tremor suddenly crawled on the ground. Then, with an explosive force that was completely out of proportion to its size and appearance, it used both its hands and feet to brazenly rush towards Chen Guang and Enchanting. In fact, at this time, the best choice for Chen Guang was to turn his head and dodge to the side. But he couldn't dodge. Enchanting seemed to be unable to move at this time. He didn't have the time to turn around and pick her up. The name of this Great Earthquake Tremor was very cumbersome. It looked quite stiff, but it was actually super agile. Damn, isn't it just a 3-meter-tall stone man? Although I don't know what kind of tricks it has, I don't believe that my Kirin arm doesn't have the power to fight. Chen Guang took a deep breath and clenched his fists. He accumulated strength in his whole body. Other than the unfinished chest and abdomen, the muscles in other parts of his body seemed to be rapidly expanding. Yes, I have nowhere to retreat. The lowly is right behind me.
Come on.
Dang dang. AI. Why am I inexplicably flying? The stone man hasn't arrived yet? What happened? So fast. Freedom is the direction of running with the wind. Chasing the power of thunder and lightning? Chen Guang turned his body sideways. His whole body was parallel to the ground. He raised his head and looked forward. He could only see the forest and the road in front of him rapidly retreating. The stone man behind him was still roaring nonstop. The sound of its running on the ground was loud, but the distance between them wasn't shortened. The whistling wind blew on his face. This early morning breeze would be too beautiful if there wasn't a great earthquake tremor howling as it chased after them. But what is going on? Could it be that my superpower awakened temporarily and I obtained the ability to fly? Not good. Enchanting is still here. Chen Guang turned his head and looked at the position behind him. It was Enchanting's waist, breasts, two white hemispheres, and below, cough cough. In any case, something swayed in front of him as he ran. Fortunately, the little lowly's body was tight. Even when she was running with all her might, her pair of breasts that had broken free from the restraints were not thrown up and down. It did not hinder her movement. However, from this special angle, it was quite pleasing to the eye. Are you stupid? Do you have the strength of such a huge stone man? What the hell is this? The little girl, who was completely naked, hugged Chen Guang by the waist. Her right hand grabbed his waist and locked him tightly in the crook of her arm. Although her hands weren't long enough, they were still able to hold onto the other side of Chen Guang's waist. Can you blame me? I see you lying on the ground naked and unable to move. I was already mentally prepared to fight with the great earthquake tremor. Why didn't you tell me you could move earlier? Chen Guang casually argued. Although Lolita usually looked delicate, she was truly worthy of her title as a pinnacle bone force expert when she brought out her true ability. Her skinny body had nuclear power hidden in it, and her legs were practically moving at a rapid pace. Enchanting snorted disdainfully. Aren't you looking down on me too much? Hey, I am at the peak of bone strength. Besides, my whole body was weak because I was afraid that you would lose your dignity as a man, so I deliberately pretended to make you happy, okay? TSK, you think you can make this girl weak all over with 2 needles? Don't joke around. Chen Guang was unconvinced. Hey, look at my bad temper. Do you know who you are talking to? You are facing the strongest pile driver in history. He really didn't believe it. It's not like I don't know how to act. If what you did just now was an act, then I'll give you 10 Oscars. This little loli must have used some unknown secret method to recover her mobility in such a short period of time and run faster than usual.
Wait, what did you say just now?
The Great Earthquake Tremor? How do you know that monster's name? Enchanting suddenly reacted. Chun Guang decisively decided to lie to her. I just gave it a new name. How is it? Is it cool? Enchanting was speechless. Chun Guang continued to change the topic. Oh right, why don't you put me down? I can run by myself. It doesn't look good for you to run naked like this. What if you bump into someone? As the two of them ran away in a panic, they had unknowingly run away from Wutua town for 2 to 3 minutes. They had even come to the side of the road and passed by a few houses. But the strange thing was, from beginning to end, the two of them didn't see another living person. No, I can't run far, Enchanting suddenly said. Enchanting suddenly said. As soon as she finished speaking, she ran even faster. What the hell? Chun Guang was puzzled. Enchanting coughed lightly and seemed to have become a little weak. Okay, I won't lie to you. I really didn't have any strength just now. I was scared by the stone man, so I didn't think too much. I ate 2 empowerment pills. Although I recovered my mobility for a short time, I will be completely out of strength after a while. And then, Chun Guang had a faint headache, but he couldn't blame Enchanting. He, who knew a little about the inside story, was scared to the point of peeing his pants by the tremor earth. She, a little girl who didn't know anything, could calm down in such a short time, make a decision, and decisively run away with him in her arms. It was really not easy. We are definitely not this monster's match. I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, this is it. This monster's speed is not much slower than me after taking the empowerment pill. When I run out of strength later, you can run by yourself. What about you? Enchanting said half-jokingly.
Don't worry about me.
I'm your deputy director. Let the leader go first, and I'll be responsible for bringing up the rear. Chun Guang broke free from her. Nonsense. Chun Guang used too much force, and Enchanting almost lost her balance and fell to the ground. What are you doing? Chun Guang turned around and carried her in his arms. Nothing. I should be the one asking you. What the hell is the leader going first? You can't stop taking the medicine. Enchanting panicked. I'm not joking with you.
Put me down.
You can't run away. Chun Guang curled his lips in disdain. Can I trouble you to take a look? I'm sorry, but I seem to be running a little faster than you. Enchanting turned her head away from Chun Guang. Indeed, the stone man chasing them seemed to be getting further and further away. Chun Guang asked again, How is it? I didn't lie to you, right? Enchanting nodded and didn't say anything else. Perhaps because she didn't have to run anymore, the breath that she had been holding in was suddenly released. Her body suddenly became limp, and this time, she really didn't even have the strength to lift her arms. Chun Guang, on the other hand, didn't blush as he ran with her in his arms. Soldiers were trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. Wasn't this the day that he had painstakingly trained eeless legs for? I'm the best at running, so let's go. As they ran, Chun Guang took some time to say, the side effects of this empowerment pill are a little strong. Enchanting said weakly, Actually, if I only took 1 pill, it shouldn't be a problem. But when I was taking the medicine just now, maybe my hand was shaking too much, so I poured out 2 pills at once. I didn't look carefully at the time and stuffed them all into my mouth. The other one seems to have a quality problem or something. It's very powerful and takes effect very quickly, but the side effects seem to be very strong too. Chun Guang immediately understood. All right, it seemed that this invincible supreme martial artist's bad luck had hit Enchanting's head again. It was just like the time when she had taken the wrong bag when she jumped. She was supposed to be the one to take the blame first. I'm really thankful that I have a scapegoat like you by my side. As the saying goes, the first beat of a drum, the second beat of a drum, the third beat of a drum, the second beat of a drum, and the third beat of a drum will be exhausted. He originally wanted to compete with this earthshaker in terms of strength and put his life on the line. But once he started running, he really didn't know what was going on. His whole body became inert, and he couldn't stop at all. Running away was addictive. In between, he had once mustered up the courage to turn back and fight again, but then he looked at Enchanting, who had turned into a pile of mud in his arms, and turned back to glance at the Earthshaker. He saw that when this guy passed by an electric pole, its shoulder was accidentally brushed by it, and the electric pole made of cement collapsed with a loud bang. It made one's eyelids twitch wildly. Old Master Guang said that after careful consideration, the old man might really not be its match. Damn, this thing's strength was a little unreasonable. After running for a few minutes with Enchanting in his arms, although Chen Guang was faster and gradually shook off the Earthshaker, this damn thing seemed to have a built-in navigation system. Even though they couldn't see each other in their line of sight, it still firmly followed the correct path and chased relentlessly. Where do we run to now? This stone man doesn't seem to get tired. Chen Guang grunted. It's fine. I'm thinking of a way. Enchanting raised another question. Only the heavens knew what was driving the Earthshaker. In any case, Chen Guang had been running for his life for so long, but it still maintained a constant speed and followed closely behind, as if it didn't get tired at all. Now that things had come to this, Chen Guang had no other ideas. He could only rely on the telepathic connection between him and the heavenly Holy Grail to run straight to where his backpack had landed. He would arrive in about a minute or two. He would first get the unlucky heavenly Holy Grail back in his hands and see if there was any other way. At this moment, the most awkward person was actually Enchanting. She had been naked since they were in midair. In broad daylight, her and Chen Guang's situation was really too embarrassing. Unfortunately, they didn't even have time to catch their breath, let alone find clothes to wear. Fortunately, they hadn't bumped into a pedestrian or a car along the way. They didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. It's all my fault for being muddle-headed. If I didn't eat the wrong empowerment pill, I would be able to run with you right now, and things wouldn't be like this. Enchanting blamed herself. Chen Guang didn't care. It's fine, it's fine. You're unlucky, but I won't be.
Ah,
don't worry about those details. Grab my neck tightly. I'm going to jump into that ditch. After saying that, Chen Guang rose into the air. Enchanting stretched out her soft hand and barely hooked her neck. His feet landed heavily on the ground. He didn't care about Enchanting's white and tender chest slapping his face. He adjusted his body slightly and ran forward again. Then there was a crack. What's wrong? Even Enchanting could hear a cracking sound coming from his body. Cold sweat dripped down Chen Guang's forehead. If I said I sprained my ankle, would you believe me? If I believed you, then why are you still running? Why else? I have to run even if my leg is broken, okay? Damn the invincible supreme bad luck. It was even cooler than version 1.0's supreme bad luck. Enchanting, the scapegoat, didn't manage to bear the full brunt of it. Please don't cause any more trouble, right? Spraining his ankle hurt, but he could grit his teeth and endure it. He couldn't die here, right? It was obvious that Tremor Earthshaker couldn't communicate with him. The backpack was getting closer and closer, but after spraining his ankle, Chen Guang slowed down slightly. Not only was he unable to increase the distance between him and the stone man, but he was even gradually caught up. Finally, as the feeling in his heart grew stronger, the backpack seemed to be right in front of him. Seeing that the dawn was right in front of him, his foot no longer hurt, and his leg was no longer sore. Even the leg hair that fluttered in the wind became glossier. F***ck. Why is it hanging on the tree? Hugging Enchanting, Chen Guang stood under a tree that required 7 to 8 people to encircle. Raising his head, he saw his beloved backpack hanging on the branch of the tree, laughing at his misfortune. There was no time to hesitate. Chen Guang flipped his hand and threw Enchanting onto his back. Do you still have strength in your arms? Hug my neck tightly. It's time to climb the tree. Although Enchanting had no idea what Chen Guang planned to do, she could only trust him unconditionally. She mustered up her strength and hugged his shoulders tightly. Okay. When Enchanting hugged him tightly, Chen Guang climbed up the yellow fruit tree. When he was about 10 meters above the ground, Enchanting saw that he was sweating from exhaustion and asked, "Are you going to get something from the treetop? Why don't I wait for you down there? That thing is coming. You won't make it in time." Left with no choice, Guang put Enchanting down and let her hug the tree trunk. Then, he used the strength of his Qilin arm to carve a mark on the tree trunk and rushed up like a rock climber. The running and roaring sound of the stone man were getting closer and closer. Guang was getting closer and closer to his heavenly holy grail.
Got it.
Guang grabbed the backpack and was about to celebrate when the unpleasant roar came from under the tree. He looked down and saw that the thing was less than 50 meters away from the yellow fruit tree. He put the backpack on his back and slid down. When he landed next to Enchanting, the stone man was already under the tree. What should I do? What should I do now? Enchanting, who had finally calmed down, was in a daze again. Guang looked at her first, then took out the heavenly holy grail satchel from the backpack and tied it around his waist. "Don't worry, I'm here." Enchanting screamed. "It's going to hit the tree." With a loud bang, the thick yellow fruit tree was hit by the earth tremor with its shoulder. The branches shook and leaves flew everywhere. The two people on the tree were on the verge of falling. What was more frightening was that the tree trunk looked like it was going to break. They couldn't let it hit the tree again, or the tree would definitely fall. Guang squeezed the heavenly holy grail in his satchel. "I don't believe it. There's always a way out. The old man is the great savior. You can't force me to die here so easily." He stood up abruptly and took out a watermelon-shaped military knife from the backpack hanging on the tree trunk. F***Sika.
I'll kill you.
He was mad. With a roar, he jumped down from the tree. Enchanting screamed, "No!" Guang, who was flying in the air, waved his hand heroically. "It's okay. Hide in the tree. I'll lure it away." Actually, he wasn't as irrational as he looked. This unlucky stone man's target should be him. He would try to land first. If he couldn't withstand it, he would run. If he lured this thing away, at least Enchanting would be able to escape first. If he could defeat it, forget it, that didn't seem very realistic. Guang held the knife hilt with both hands and pointed the tip downwards. He was aiming at the earth tremor skull, if it even had one.
Die. Creak.
Guang didn't land on the back of the stone man as he wished. When he was falling in the air, he was scratched on the back by a special branch that grew out of the tree trunk. Not only did it leave a bloody mark on his back, but he was also hung on the tree trunk. Swaying, he was hanging about 2 to 3 meters in front of the earth tremor.
Ah. Hi.
"Nice to meet you." Silently putting the knife aside, Guang waved his hand at the faceless stone man in front of him. So awkward. The invincible supreme being's bad luck was really strong. "I'm so unlucky today." Chapter 778. Even though his tone was very gentle and communicative, like an experienced diplomat, and not at all inferior to Su Qin and Zhang Yi, it was useless. But it was useless. The great earthquake tremor couldn't understand what he was saying at all. Summer insects couldn't talk about ice. A sudden howl came from the stone head. Then the monster swung its thick right arm like lightning and slapped heavily at Guang's shoulder. Enchanting screamed from the tree. She stood up and wanted to jump down from the tree to help, but she could not make it in time. Guang was joking with a great earthquake tremor, but from the moment he was hung on the tree branch, he had been secretly accumulating power and preparing to receive this big guy's full power attack. His body turned to the side, his hands holding the military blade horizontally. The tip of the blade faced the palm of the great earthquake tremor. With a clang, Guang was sent flying sideways. The tough military blade embedded in the stone man's palm and passed through. As for Guang, he flew 17 or 18 meters away and rolled 3 or 4 times on the ground. His Qilin arm was in so much pain that he had lost feeling. If it weren't for the fact that he had trained his chest muscles before, and if it weren't for the fact that he cleverly diverted the force when he was hit, and that he relied on his well-developed chest muscles and Qilin arms, as well as his exquisite posture, He was afraid that his entire body would have been smashed to pieces. He had just barely managed to stand up when the great earthquake tremor pounded its chest again. With a howl, it continued to charge at Chen Guang. The military blade embedded in its palm did not seem to affect it at all. It did not seem to feel it. Chen Guang was dumbstruck. This monster was too crazy. It was not injured at all? Then how should I deal with it? Never mind, I'll run first. Stupid stone man, you want to deal with me with your personality?
Goodbye.
After making up his mind, Chen Guang turned and fled after cursing. It was fine as long as Enchanting was fine. On the tree branch, how could Enchanting not know what Chen Guang was planning? She was extremely anxious, but there was nothing she could do. Enchanting clenched her fists tightly, feeling both regretful and hateful. If she hadn't mistakenly taken 2 empowerment pills, if one of them hadn't expired, she wouldn't be so weak right now. She wanted to help, but she knew that it was impossible for her to catch up with Chen Guang, let alone deal with this stone man. If she didn't drag him down, Chen Guang would be able to run faster, and he might even have a chance to get rid of this damn thing. No matter how unwilling she was, Enchanting also understood that her best choice was to stay on the tree and quickly think of all ways to get rid of the aftereffects of the vigor pill and restore her strength. But his leg was injured. Sure enough, although Chen Guang was still very fast, when his right foot landed on the ground, it gave off an uncoordinated feeling. It was clear that he had just sprained his foot, and the injury was getting worse. At this moment, Enchanting was anxious, but Chen Guang was even more anxious. Using himself as bait to save Enchanting's life, this kind of impassioned and fearless thing was done. He didn't regret it, and it was impossible for him to change his mind, but it didn't mean that he was really not afraid of death. As the owner of the Heavenly Holy Grail, he was actually more afraid of death than anyone else. The old man's journey was the Sea of Stars and the 3,000 worlds. How could he die in the hands of a mere stone man like you? Liuli, help me. It was useless. Calling for help was really useless. No matter how hard he shouted in his heart or with his mouth, Liuli didn't give him any response. He didn't know whether she was pretending to be offline or she really couldn't hear Chen Guang's call for help. Ever since the Heavenly Holy Grail hinted about the integration of the real world and reality, everything seemed to be out of Chen Guang's control. He began to panic. After all, spraining his ankle previously brought some inconvenience. At first, he ran faster than when he was carrying Enchanting, but slowly. He didn't know how long he had run, but he slowed down. I won't really die here, will I? Invincible supreme bad luck, double checkpoints, 10 times the strength of the world of punishment, the integration of the real world and reality, turning the whole universe into a world in a cup. It seemed like this was really too much. Now I really have to pray for more blessings. My blessings, where are you? There's a house in front. There's someone. Unknowingly, I ran to Wutua town like a headless fly. Go and ask for help?
Save it.
Chen Guang turned in another direction without thinking. He still couldn't lure this monster into the crowd. With the destructive power of this thing, it could kill gods and Buddhas. His own knife had become an ornament in its palm, so it wouldn't make any difference if it was replaced with a gun. His limping was also quite strenuous. The earthquake-like footsteps behind him were getting closer and closer. Because of his change of direction, the distance between him and the great earthquake tremor was shortened a lot. I'm probably going to die this time, right? Chen Guang thought so in his heart as he staggered as he ran. Of all the mistakes he made, he shouldn't have underestimated the power of the world of punishment. The Heavenly Holy Grail really didn't lie to me. It said 10 times, and it really was 10 times. It was really strong. Leaving the main road in the town, he didn't know where to run to. Liuli, whom he relied on, also didn't move. He really racked his brains, but still couldn't think of a way to escape. This stone man was extremely strong and fast, and it was not afraid of knives and spears. He didn't bring any powerful weapons with him either. As the saying goes, when a person is unlucky, even drinking water has to fill the gaps between the teeth. As he was running, He didn't know which wicked guy spilled a ladle of water on the dirt road and stepped on it with his right foot. He was already a little unstable to begin with, so he slipped and fell on the ground. He staggered sideways on the ground, dodging the heavy stomp of the great earthquake tremor. He crawled up with a roll and continued to run forward. Damn it! Don't mess with me like this. If I really died, wouldn't everything be over? Chun Guang cursed in his heart. This is so frustrating. If I wasn't bald, my hair would have turned white. As the saying goes, heaven never bars one's way. There must be a way. It's just that I didn't think of it. Wiping the muddy water off his face, Chun Guang thought so. Wipe water? Oh my god. It really seems to work. Then the problem is, where do I find water? I have to at least find water that can drown this stone man. Suddenly, the heavenly holy grail bubbled again. The conditions for exchange have been met. Does the Redeemer want to use faith points to exchange?
Sigh.
What the hell is the conditions for exchange? Chun Guang cursed in his heart as he couldn't wait to communicate with the heavenly holy grail again. Unlike before, he could finally establish a connection with the heavenly holy grail this time. However, there wasn't any exchange list that appeared in front of his eyes. Something appeared in his heart out of nowhere. Looking at the small pond floating in his mind like a mirage, he was speechless. So the so-called conditions for exchange, to put it bluntly, was that he had to think of it first. Then, the punishment realm would think that he had obtained the qualifications to exchange and send this thing to him. To put it bluntly, the heavenly holy grail was encouraging him to use his brain to think of a solution. As long as he came up with an idea first, this unlucky grail would make his wish come true. It's just that the price is a little expensive. 660,000 faith points to exchange for a little pond. Calculating with his fingers, alright, this unlucky holy grail might have purposely said it this way because he just happened to have that many left. Come on. My beloved little pond, it's worth your faith points.
Splash.
In the next second, the soil under his feet disappeared into thin air, and his whole body fell into the water with a splash. Although it happened in a hurry, but as an old pirate that had roamed the sea of fleeting for countless years, he instantly reacted after entering the water. He quickly slapped the water like a carp, rolling and continuing to scurry forward, dodging the big palm of the earth tremor behind him. The water splashed and the waves pushed him forward again, pushing him forward by a large margin. Although it was called a little pond, its diameter was actually tens of meters. Chun Guang scurried forward. From time to time, he would pop his head out of the water to look back. He saw that the originally arrogant earth tremor was half submerged in the water, only its stone head was still above the water surface. This damned thing continued to stubbornly move forward in Chun Guang's direction as if it didn't have any intelligence, but its speed was a lot slower, even slower than Chun Guang's swimming speed. Apart from that, the rolling dust on its body had all fallen into the water. Of course it was gone. The ability to continuously attract the rocks and sand on the ground to itself seemed to be the innate skill of this great earthquake tremor. Although it looked like its entire body was a solid block of rock, it was actually a combination of sand and a huge amount of small rocks under the control of its innate skill. Its body looked solid, but in fact it was semi-mobile, which allowed it to have an almost indestructible body while having infinite strength. But when its environment became a pond, no stones and mud on the ground were sucked up by it. It could only suck a little mud from the bottom of the pond, but at the same time the stones on its body still maintained the trend of disintegration. This pond that cost Chun Guang 660,000 faith points to exchange for cut off the earth tremor's seemingly perfect internal and external circulation, causing it to only be able to go out and not go in. At the same time, due to the mud constantly being sucked into its body, its movements became more and more sluggish. Chun Guang brought this thing around in the pond for 5 to 6 minutes before it finally stopped moving. It bubbled and sank into the water. After a short while, the entire pond was dyed yellow, as if a truck of sand had been poured into it. Chun Guang lay on the shore and let out a long sigh of relief. It was finally done. Fortunately, although this thing had infinite strength, its intelligence was a bit lacking. The brain was the #1 productive force. My productivity is even higher, and I still have an unscrupulous profiteer to sell me a pond at this time. In fact, he knew that he had also made use of the rules of the punishment realm. Although he was not sure if this stone man was a real living creature, there was no doubt that if it wanted to live, it definitely could not go into the water. But this stone man that was chasing him was not like this, even if this pond suddenly appeared under its feet because of his exchange, causing it to fall directly in. But according to common sense, it should have tried to leave at the first moment, but not only did it not do so, it persevered in chasing him until it completely died in the water. This meant that the tremor earth must have been restricted by the rules of the punishment realm and had to chase him relentlessly like an arrow that had been shot. Thinking about it carefully, it died quite miserably. Chun Guang was about to turn back towards the direction of the Huangguishu, but he suddenly saw a flash of something shining on the surface of the water. He hurriedly dived into the water again and swam in that direction. Swimming over was also due to luck, or perhaps the pond that he had summoned was helping him. The crystal that should have sunk was pushed up by the rolling water bubbles. Chun Guang grabbed it in his hand and looked at it. It was a sparkling and translucent light yellow crystal, about the size of a fingernail. He was immediately overjoyed. According to the old man's many years of experience playing online games, this must be an item that dropped after defeating the boss. Of course. He hurriedly put it into his bosom as if it was a treasure. At this moment, the heavenly Holy Grail's notification sounded again. Congratulations, Redeemer, for successfully killing the Tremor Earth. You have cleared the second stage, the Invincible Supremacy Bad Luck, and the third stage, the Great Tremor Earth. As Chun Guang swam to the side of the pond, he sighed in his heart. The power of this fusion stage was really not just for show. Fortunately, the old man was quick-witted and survived. Then what about the reward? What was the reward? There is no reward. He didn't know if the heavenly Holy Grail understood his inner complaints, but it actually gave him such an extra reminder. According to this Stinky Grail's usual character, it shouldn't have told Chun Guang this. But it wasn't that there was no good news. The long-lost Azure's voice finally sounded in his heart.
Yo.
Chun Guang, you're still alive? Azure's voice carried an indescribable sense of surprise, but it made Chun Guang's heart feel even colder. The more you act like this, the clearer it is telling me that you really didn't know about my situation during that period of time and weren't protecting me. To think that I kept thinking that if I was really at the end of my rope, you would definitely come and save me, but the result was not like that at all. The greatest sorrow in the world was to always think that there was still 100 yuan in the left pocket of your pants and happily order 3 side dishes at a restaurant, only to find that there was a hole in the bottom of your left pocket when you paid the bill. At this moment, he felt like this. His greatest trump card actually didn't exist at all. What a sad story. Come on. Don't look so wronged. It's the realm of punishment that's 10 times stronger than before. It's not that easy to fool. Before you can get through the first 3 stages, I really can't do anything. The heavenly Holy Grail has also completely cut off my divine power. Chun Guang climbed ashore and sighed. Forget it. From now on, we won't lose contact, right? Yes, but I still can't bring you any substantial help. I can only answer some of your questions. I have 10,000 questions to ask you, okay?
Speak.
What is the Tremor Earth? Isn't this on Earth? Isn't this the real world? Where did this thing come from? Liuli chuckled. The real world is the same as the realm of destiny. It's one of the special worlds of the heavenly Holy Grail. The last time you encountered the realm of punishment, the real world had already fused with your real world once. However, the strength of the fusion at that time wasn't enough, so it didn't cause much change to the real world. This is already the second fusion, and the degree of fusion is much deeper than the last time. So, it's normal for some strange things that you don't recognize to appear. As Chun Guang limped forward, he asked, "Why did you say it so casually?" Liuli's image appeared vaguely in his mind. She was shrugging her shoulders. Because this kind of elemental creature, I've already stopped playing with it when I was in the divine realm. It's even more common than the ants in your world. I really thank you for your knowledge. You're welcome. Then, after I finish this realm of punishment, the power of the real world will return, right? Chun Guang asked cautiously. But out of his expectation, Luli replied in an uncertain tone. Probably, maybe. Don't scare me. You're not sure? Lioli humphed. Didn't I say it already? The Heavenly Holy Grail is one of the 10 great artifacts of the Divine Realm. After it was created, you're still its first master. You're just a fresh lab rat. I'm not sure what exactly will happen. Chun Guang silently hammered his heart. The old man was a sinner. If this damn thing really appeared everywhere in the world, then wouldn't he become a sinner that destroyed humanity? You don't have to worry about this. The range of elemental creatures' appearance is currently limited to your mission area, which is near this utopia. The power of the Holy Grail in other places isn't strong enough to support the birth of elemental creatures. Lioli clearly heard the nagging in Chun Guang's heart. At least she said some good news. All right, then tell me what this thing is. Chun Guang took out the piece of crystal that he had just picked up from his pocket and asked excitedly. In his heart, he was thinking, quickly tell me what kind of heart of earth this is. After eating it, I can increase my experience or obtain the blessings of Mother Earth or something. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to obtain a special ability. He was just a little unhappy. This crystal seemed to have signs of melting after being soaked in water. It seemed like the quality of this heart of earth wasn't good. That's right, this was at least a defective heart of earth. Lioli glanced at it. In my opinion, this is a lemon-flavored fruit candy. Chun Guang was speechless. Damn it, even the unlucky tremor earth had to set me up after its death. It's fine if you suck stones, but why the heck did you even suck fruit candy? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.